comments about it?
All right, good morning, everyone. Good morning, my name is Anthony Archie, Tulsa City Councilor for District 2, and welcome to everyone joining us in person and online, and for those of you who will be watching on YouTube a little bit later. It's 10:30. Is it on? No. It wasn't on.
Is it on?
Okay, all right. I don't know why it's not on, but it's on now. Welcome, everyone, to the 10:30 UED meeting. It's November 5th, and for those of you joining us online, thank you so much, and in the room. The first business, first thing we're doing, calling the meeting to order. Number 2, Anthony Meadows, the reappointment to the Human Rights Commission, whose term expires July 1st, 2028. You attended 7 of 10 meetings.
We should move to the next one. He's not here
Is he
yet.
not here? Okay, all right, maybe we will put a pin in that. And go to item number 3, Stephen J. Adams, reappointment to Tulsa's Port of Catoosa Facilities Authority. Term expires November 1st, 2030. Attended 31 of 38 meetings. Please.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
A pleasure. Will you join us at the table?
Yes, sir, I will.
Any one of these seats is fine. Would you just share a little bit about who you are and why you want to continue to serve?
Yes, I will. I've served on the Tulsa Ports Board of Directors for 25 years and currently serve as the Vice Chairman. A former district judge in Rogers County, and the Rogers County Commissioners have graciously recommended me to continue my service on the Port Board. You know, City of Tulsa, Rogers County, Tulsa Ports have had a great working relationship. We're really excited about the opportunities going forward, and I would appreciate the City of Tulsa agreeing to my reappointment to the board.
Great. Councilor Bangle?
Being the representative of East Tulsa, one of the representatives of East Tulsa, can you tell us anything exciting that's going on at the Port of Catoosa right now?
Yes, sir. You're probably aware that Tulsa Ports is now comprised of what we used to call Port of Catoosa, but also we now have a port at Inola.
Mm-hmm.
And there's already been some tremendous development there with a company called Sofidel. And there has been announced by the governor that a company from the United Arab Emirates will be coming to the port to build a new facility.
Mm-hmm.
Tulsa Ports now has approximately 3,400 people working at the port. We have 43 companies who operate at the port. We think those are exciting items just because in today's world, it is nonstop with the interest in outside companies to come to our part of Oklahoma. Those are the general reports about exciting things happening.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you for the question.
I appreciate your service.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Wonderful. Anyone else with a comment or question? All right, Mr. Adams. Well, you will be voted on November the 12th. That is next week. You're free to come and speak at the vote, but thank you for your service, and we'll see you soon.
Okay, thank you. And as a lawyer, I'd be glad to stand subject to your cross-examination. Mr. Chairman, may I be excused?
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate you. I'm looking around for Anthony Meadows. No? All right. Well, very good. Item number 4, presentation by and discussion with our very own mayor or his representative, but the mayor is here today, on a revenue enhancement proposal. Other than discussion, no action will be taken. Other than discussion, no action will be taken. Welcome, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilor Archie. Unlike Mr. Adams, I'm probably not as excited about cross-examination, but here we go. First of all, I just want to say I just came from Councilor Archie, Councilor Lakin, Councilor Bingle, we're all there, where we worked on a big decommissioning effort that was announced today. Very excited about that. Broad partnership, I think Emily is down here later on today to talk more about that. But I lift it up right now just because there were 3 of you that were there, and so I didn't get the opportunity at the time to thank everybody in person, which I did on the microphone, for your support of the $6 million move of resources to make that possible. So that work's getting underway, and hopefully it's something that everybody's really proud of. I'm certainly proud of it. I will start just talking about, I know this has been a conversation that everybody around the table is very well aware of, so I imagine that people have come with questions, but before we jump into those, just a couple of things that I would note. The action that I am asking the council to take here in a matter of a couple of weeks is to put a question, two questions actually, to a vote of the people, one of which you'll hear from our friends from the Tulsa Regional Chamber in just a second, but one of which would be a 7/10 of a penny sales tax increase to invest in critical services across the city. And the conversations that I know we've had and conversations we've had directly associated with this particular concept and the conversations we had last budget year and conversations I know that predated my time in office, I think there's pretty wide agreement that we're in a spot where we have to think about ways in which we might enhance revenue on the operational side, not just on the capital side. Just a couple highlights from last budget year. I know there were some concerns in our inability to invest in things like animal services, our inability to do some of the employee retention work. I can tell you right now, as we're working right now on thinking about our long-term needs as it relates to public safety, those things are significant challenges. And everybody around the table knows where we sit from a sales tax rate standpoint. And so as we think about those challenges that we have that we know every year we run up into, auditors report showing where we are from kind of structural challenge that we have versus, what we take in versus what we spend. All those things are big challenges that we have. In addition to that, the 10 of us, the 11 of us, including the auditor, in our retreat talked a lot about priorities that we have. And so the proposed action would allow people to decide on what would be, an estimated $80 million in operational revenue for the city. You all have seen at least something that I've sent to everybody that was reflective of how I see those priorities playing out in a way in which we might invest those resources. I know a couple of questions have come up. Why now? Why not wait to a different time? And there's a couple things that I would just draw attention to on that front. We started this conversation pretty early in the fall, late summer, I think is fair to say. And at the time, there was even going to be an effort to see if we could get toward some good place in November, and that just was not the timeline that was reasonable. The February 10th date is important because it gives us the opportunity, with the lag and when resources would come to us, to begin this budget process, knowing if we're going to have that additional resource in which we can figure out how we invest across areas that are critical to this community, homelessness, public safety. I certainly am bullish on on what it means for us to invest in children and youth and economic development, all the things that you all are aware of. But I think it's critical that those things are discussed and fleshed out in the budget process. And so we have some certainty about the future. I recognize that 7/10 of a penny is not nothing. It does require more of citizens in Tulsa. What we are proposing to do is something we haven't done in about 45 years. And so that means it's hard, but it also means that you probably don't get the chance to do it for another 45 years. And so you got to be really thoughtful about what's the right balance between a competitive sales tax rate that doesn't make Tulsa unaffordable for folks, while at the same time making sure that we're able to invest in what I believe is a dynamic city, and a dynamic city with a lot of dynamic needs that everybody's well aware of. So with that, knowing that everybody is pretty well versed in everything that we've talked about and everything that we've been exposed to, Counselor, Mr. Chairman, I will be open for questions as we discuss this particular proposal.
Does anyone have any questions or comments? I didn't see any hands.
Oh, no questions. Great.
Speaking. Counselor Bellis.
Yeah, I have, I think, maybe two initial questions that I think would help shape the conversation for folks. When which of course, when we're talking about something like water rates, you know, right? I know a lot of families are thinking about all the different things that have increased over time, and we did just have to increase, of course, just to actually maintain services, you know, our water rates. When we have those conversations at the table, it's, hey, for an average family, it's gonna cost this much more a month. Do we have data like that for this related to it'll cost this much per month per family, or for a business, like a small business, or things like
Yeah,
that?
so sales tax can be a little tricky in figuring out, but I did kind of pull based on trends that I found, like what it would cost a family for on a monthly kind of a food bill. And what I saw here, the number that I saw is like a almost a $1,300 food budget, as an example.
Okay.
And the number would come out to a little under $9, about $8.79 or something like that, is what that would look like for a family just from a food standpoint. Sales tax is tricky though, and, you know, just like we think about, you know, it's really tough to say $80 million spread across every citizen. We've got other people who are coming in and spending. But the one thing, particularly given all the news around SNAP and everything else, I thought it was really good to think about this just from the standpoint of a food budget, just a basic needs budget. So that gives you some sense of what you're talking about.
Okay, I think that's super helpful context, because I think part of a lot of my questions have to do with thinking about making things really clear to voters and people about what are we saying we're doing, what are we saying we're not doing, how does it stack up for people's bills, knowing that there's a lot of other, you know, I want to acknowledge, right, we have PSO in front of the Corporation Commission raising rates, we had to do our water bill rates, which, you know, we're not allowed to make a profit off of that at the city, we gotta hit a break even, but that's gonna, you know, I don't think that this amount is necessarily the thing that's gonna break someone's bank account.
Yeah.
However, we know that all this other stuff's stacking up right now. So
Yeah.
I've just been trying to think about how do we communicate to people, if we're talking about amounts here, what does that actually look like for an average person or a small business owner?
Yeah, and I think the additional thing on that is, it does come with a high degree of accountability if we're asking people, and which should be the case for every dollar that we spend, and I believe it to be. And so also think about this particular question is also, you know, sort of a, you know, us rethinking about how every dollar that we spend, we have to make sure that people are getting a benefit out of it. And so I think that's critical to also think about.
Yeah, that leads into my next question, that I can pause for if other, I know folks
Well,
have
no
other
one else is
questions.
on the queue.
Yeah,
But see,
no.
Go ahead and take some.
There, see, look,
Okay, there we go.
I saw him writing.
Right.
But so I think my other curiosity, or something that, right, we know with all the, and I do see the need to raise revenue, and I think, I don't know if anyone at this table disagrees that we do need to look at, you know, different revenue streams with federal and state instability. I think we're all, of course, concerned about mental health funding or things like that. I'm not trying to, if my colleagues disagree, they can tell me. I don't want to put words in anyone's mouth. But right, you know, with what's happened with, you know, at the state level, with funding for core programs that we've had for a long time, like COPES, I know that we want to stabilize all of that. I know that that's something we're going to need to sort out. I guess I've been trying to think about how to really wrap our arms around the instability of what's going to happen with HUD dollars or CDBG dollars, right? What's going to happen with dollars when it comes to the mental health funding? Like, how much do we have an estimate for, hey, we think we need to backfill this much at the community level? Because I know we've heard from a consultant last week, we need this much per year to address our homelessness crisis, right? We got a hard number for that, but then simultaneously, we also know that there's things that are really going to hit families where it hurts, where we're losing certain resources, or we have public safety funding that we want to make sure is happening. So I've been trying to think a lot about, if we're saying we're trying to kind of shore up or stabilize or scale core programming, that we need dollars for on this level, do we have kind of precise, hey, this is what we are funding the amounts we're concerned about for some of that core stuff? Like, I'm thinking about COPES, or I'm thinking
Yeah.
about CDBG
Yeah,
programming.
I mean, the one thing that I would, so two things there. I think this is one of the reasons why it's critical, why February 10th is so important, right? Because we know those things are looming, but we also need to make sure through the budget process, we're thinking about this as a whole, as kind of holistically. I wouldn't necessarily see the additional resources that would be generated as like a one-for-one plug from what the federal government might not be doing. I think we still got to make sure that we're working with the feds, that they do what they do, and working with the state to do what they do. I think if we were just to look at kind of a mix of challenges that we have, the things that we know we have to do every day, and the things that are going to help, you know, maybe us build a little bit toward the future, we know just based on the, you know, the the expertise of a consultant that came in and kind of what we know about the gravity of the homelessness situation, that it's going to take a significant resource for some amount of time. That number that they have is 30, but I think it's important that through the budget process, we figure out what that real number is. But we know it's a universe of about $30 million that we're going to have to invest to get where we want to go. So, I mean, I think that's there. And so that's if all things are equal as they are today, right? We know that Tulsa has that challenge. The other thing that I think is really critically important, from the time I was campaigning and before to today and moving forward, the question has always been, well, why don't we have more in the way of law enforcement? We know there's some share. There may be significant disagreement on what the appropriate authorized force is. I would argue that we all know it's north of where we are right now. Is that another 150 officers where we said it is, or is there? But we know we can't even get, whatever that number is, we can't get there today. And so if we think about that particular, same thing goes with the fire department. And so just think about from a public safety standpoint, and we know we have public safety challenges, there is no current pathway to make the investments necessary in those areas. So, and then if I think about just this last budget year, going back to that just for a second, I think talent's important. I know there was a lot of support on the council for employee retention. We couldn't do that. I know we have the animal shelter that's coming up, and I believe there's a need for just under 20 folks at the animal shelter. We can't do that currently. The municipal court number that we've all known well about. So we know there's also these things that if we're honest with ourselves, we can't do them, even though we know we need them. They're not nice to have. They're absolute needs. And so there's part of this where there are these looming challenges that we have that somebody else is not going to do what they're supposed to do. And that's going to continue to be a stress and challenge. But there's also part of this when it comes to what does it take to actually fund services for a city this size that I think we have to be honest about. And I think that is more so where this is coming from, is more so on every city our size, and even cities a lot smaller than us, have come to that reality. It's a tough and hard conversation to have, but that's the reason why people ultimately get to decide if it's something that we're going to do. And I think that's kind of where we're at right now. We know that there's a need for these resources. We know there's not a true pathway from getting there because everybody, the 9 folks on this council, if there's a pathway to doing those things last year, we would have done them last year. But what we found last year is not only could we not do those things, we also have the structural imbalance that I think we'd be smart to get away from. I know we do it through fund balance. I know there's some confusion on, are we not spending our money appropriately legal? We are. We're just using fund balance to do it. I think we got to break away from that and make sure we're being honest with the people who pay the bills and how much it costs to make things go.
I'm glad you clarified that because we've all seen the public messaging
Sure.
of that things have been misbudgeted or that there was some type of deficit that was created when I'm glad you mentioned that. Just as one last quick question that I know
Sure.
there's other counselors. Just can you, if you don't have this off the top of your head, no worries. With our neighbors, I know we have a lower sales tax rate than some of our neighbors. What's our highest neighbor sales tax rate? Do you know?
I can tell you that. I believe, so I don't get this inaccurate. I actually have this on a piece of paper here. I believe it's Glenpool. And I can run you down a couple. It's Glenpool and they're at 5.1%. Collinsville's 4.8, Skytook's 4.5, Bixby's 4.05, as is Owasso, Sand Springs, Coweta's 4%. We're at 3.65 right now, just for context. So there's a number of our neighbors that are certainly higher, and I think the other part about that, just to put a fine point on it, if you were to take the entire metro areas in Tulsa and Oklahoma City, we're the 5th lowest out of all those. Oklahoma City is, I believe the number is 0.6 of a penny higher than us right now, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, thanks. That's helpful, which I know between that and
0.5 of a penny, sorry.
Have some robust stuff. Okay, thank you.
Counselor Lakin?
Yeah, thank you for being down here. You and I have spoken many
Yes, sir.
times privately.
Yes, sir.
About this item. And I've told you straight up what I think, and I'm going to say it again in public. I think that there are some needs that have been put on the table, for sure. Obviously, we have a homelessness issue. We have some needs in the public safety realm as well. But we haven't talked publicly about how those necessarily break out. So on the homelessness issue, you know, we heard from Clutch for the very first time last week, the week before, for 30 minutes, maybe while the lady was in the airport, unfortunately for her. I would love to visit more with Clutch and know more about their plans. I'd love the public to know more about their plans as well and to hear directly from Clutch. Because I think that we could all embrace what they're saying if we had more time to just understand what their plan is. I've heard certain elements from you. I've now heard certain elements directly from them, but there's just so much more work to be done. On the public safety side, I really haven't talked to anybody from the unions or the administrative staff to know exactly how all those things break out, whether they're for it or against it. I know the police union is not for this particular plan, I should say. On children, youth, and families, we barely got the $275,000 approved in this last budget. And to go from $275,000 to $15 million is a huge change. Without us talking more significantly about that. We did talk around the table, I don't know, 4 weeks ago, and I don't feel like I'm any better today knowledgeable about what the needs are compared to then. So I'd like to continue to expand on those conversations. I don't deny the fact that we do need more in animal welfare, courts, parks, or employee retention. I think that that's essential. And then the business closing fund of $7.5 million, we may need it, but I have not heard one single thing in public about it, or even really in our private discussions about this. And that's as much on me as it is on anybody else. So I'm not putting blame on you. I've been part of 4 tax packages in the past. Vision, and I'm grateful to Sarah and others for helping me remember all this, but just to put it all out there, Vision was like a 4-year process. We ended up with 103 televised public meetings, 28 town halls, and public hearings. It took a long time to get through that, and we had 5 citizen-led working groups too. IoT 1, 50 public meetings, 2 town halls, 9 months. IoT 2, 9 public meetings, 8 town halls, online survey in almost a year. And then IoT 3, 12 public meetings, 3 town halls, and 8 months. We have a process that I know, I'm almost.
Sorry.
We have a process that we've used similar to the process that Oklahoma City has used with MAPS, where we really engage deeply with the people we're asking to ultimately adopt and support this. Given that we're being asked to adopt a 20% tax increase in 14 days, just as a council, it's hard for me to say yes to that as a voter, as a counselor, as anything, because we just haven't had that engagement out there. And I want everybody to go across the line fully knowledgeable of what they're being asked to consider and what the possibilities are for those additional revenue sources. It may be that people wholly embrace it. It may be that we get some really good feedback from the public, but and from this table too, but if we don't have those conversations and if we're rushed into this, then I think we're going to make more mistakes in the future. So I would love economic analysis. I know you provided a little bit of that, but a deep economic analysis of how, not just the costs, and I want to know what the real costs are, just beyond groceries, but what the benefits are. If we invest in this way, then these are the benefits. And I think that really helps our voters get across the line in many regards too. And then the last point, I think, and we've talked about this too, we have the public safety tax, which we've already created, which the voters already understand, and dropping all $80 million into the general fund is concerning for me, especially when we could drop it into buckets and assure the voters that what they're spending money on, what their tax dollars are going to are dedicated actual things for public safety, homelessness support and relief, children, youth, and families, whatever it may be. So I continue to want to explore the dedicated elements of that rather than just it all going into the general fund. That's all I have. And
Sure.
then we can
Yeah.
bounce back and forth.
Yeah, yes, thank you, and I appreciate all that. There's a couple things that I do want to just kind of underscore. I believe this is significantly different from vision, because different vision, IoT and those things, because, the resources generated from something like this is something that will go in the budget process every single year. So I think this is slightly different, but I heard you saying on like the work to maybe parse them out and protect the funds, and I do hear that, and I certainly appreciate that. I will say on the union side or the administrative side, I can't speak for the unions. I can't speak for the administrative side because I'm a representative of the administrative side, and these aren't things that were generated by me. These were reflective of the priorities that we have and a sense that waiting longer to do the things that we see every day, that citizens see every day, and tell them, you know what, maybe we'll get to solving that problem, at some date in the future, I believe is somewhat problematic. I mean, we have some of these growing crises, and we may also disagree, to the severity of some of the issues that we face, and I think that's fair. I feel them every day. I see them every day. I get calls about it every day. I'm getting tugged every day about what are you going to do about this issue. On the clutch side, and I can 100,000% appreciate. I don't know if they know what they're talking about or not. I don't know if it costs this much money. I don't know how much these things are. We as a team have spent a significant amount of time looking at every city that somebody would point to as a model. There are no examples where it came free, where it came cheap to get on the other side of homelessness. And so what we have found, and again, it's important that everybody does their own analysis, but it would be a mistake to think that what we have all been talking about, I know it's like the comment is we've only seen it for 2 weeks. I don't think that that's accurate, but it would be a mistake to think that the administration has spent 2 weeks thinking about this stuff, working on this stuff.
And I hope I didn't come across.
Well, and I'm not saying you did, but I mean, I think it's the thought is that everybody around this table has only thought about this stuff in the last 2 weeks, and that's not accurate for any of us, I don't think. And I don't think the conversation around the need for additional revenue is new to anybody around this table. And so, I understand the need to get out in the middle with the public. I feel like I've done quite a bit of that. Now, say community conversations aren't it, and I understand that. That's not the only time I'm out in the public. If folks around this table don't think that we have a significant problem in homelessness, and not saying they do, but other people do. We had OHP sent here saying this is the worst place in the entire country as it relates to homelessness. That's what your governor said about this community. Our governor said about this community. And so I'm just saying, not saying that I'm not throwing a shot at him. I'm just saying we have a significant problem, and there's a part of it where waiting is not going to help that problem get off to a better spot. I wish, there was we made these investments a long time ago. I wish that, maybe there was some thoughtfulness about what does a sales tax rate of 365, when that's the only way you can generate operational money, do to you over time in a city this size. So there certainly is some catch up. Even if we were at Oklahoma City's level for as long as they've been there, we would have generated a significant amount of resources to do it. I'll go into the public safety side with regards to the numbers that you have seen. The goal for us, and again, I don't necessarily rise and fall on if a union or a different union supports anything. What I committed to was saying, how do we get ourselves above Oklahoma City with the force we have now? How do we build to a future to get to 941? Because everybody tells me that's what our authorized force is, and we don't have the pathway to getting there. And that's just, those are just math numbers right there. Now, people may disagree. Should we pay our officers more than Oklahoma City? Should we pay our firefighters on par with Oklahoma City? I believe that we should, and I know what that costs, and that cost is reflected. There's no frills about it. There's no special thing about it. It's just what that costs. And I understand, at least I've been told, that there is some disagreement on that, and that disagreement from maybe some is that, well, there are some folks, as I understand it, I hate to speak for people, in one of the unions in particular think we shouldn't spend that much money on homelessness. And I can understand that. To be clear, I didn't run for office to raise taxes. I don't necessarily want to raise taxes, but I walked in and I think walked into a situation that's wasn't bad, but challenges we just hadn't gotten all that as serious as we need to about. And this is just based on all the information that we've collected over the course of a year, what it takes to get on the other side of those. Now, there may not be 6 people around this table that trust me in that, and I understand that, but waiting, I think, is only going to move the time in which we get on to people's business. And I think that folks in this case erring on the side of giving them the agency to make a decision for themselves, I think is what I'm asking counselors to do. Because then we spend the time necessary in the budget process making sure we put the money to work on behalf of people. And to me, and so like, you mentioned the deal closing fund and all those types of things. That, when I believe the deputy mayor was down here a couple weeks ago, she was asked, well, how would you spend money for children, youth, and families, as an example? And yes, we have ideas and opinions and thoughts and ways that we would spend it, but like, this is not a vision package where everything is associated with it. This is going to go into the budget process. And so it's hard when we have a determined need and we're asked how we spend it, and we say this is how we would spend it, and then we get criticized for saying the ways in which we would spend it. Like, it's kind of difficult, because what I've been attempting to do, what we've been attempting to do, is to do as much in the way of education as possible on what we know a need is and the ways in which we believe we fill that need, particularly against the goals and priorities that were agreed upon with all of us. So there's a certain amount in this that is challenges, homelessness, public safety. There's certain of it that are opportunities and challenges. That's the spending around children and youth. There's a big part of it, as we all know. And to be frank, the economic development stuff that we propose is more about business retention, less about deal closing fund, more about business retention. And I think we talked about that in our private meeting, along with taking care of the things that we have, our facilities, making sure we can invest in the animal shelter, making sure we can invest in municipal court. Again, the things that are just math problems that we've identified over time, not the least of which is our budgetary challenge that we have on what we take and what we spend.
All right.
I think, if I can follow
Please,
up just
yeah.
real quickly, I think if you take 2 different elements of this, it's trust, We all would like to say, hey, trust me, I'm with the government, but that's not really.
No,
what it's-
that's, I don't think that's what I'm saying. I'm saying that, trust me when I say we are in a spot right now, based even on like outside analysis, we are trying to deliver core services in a growing city with a hand and a half tied behind our back. And so like, I think that, and I think that's something that we all acknowledge. So I would like for us to maybe, and I get the trust part, I recognize that. I don't want us to go into this conversation feeding into all of the negative mental models about raising taxes, and the reason why I say that is because right now, I think still, the federal government is closed. There's questions the state's gonna invest. We are still open for business. People depend on us even when things go poorly. And so I'm not saying that we are, without, mistakes. We aren't. But what we're talking about right now is meeting demonstrated needs in a community where we all live here together. This is not about investing in some big federal program that we don't know if it worked or not. This is about meeting the challenge around homelessness. This is about making sure that we can pay a comparable rate for the folks who protect us and put out fires every day. This is about making sure, at least in my view, we're investing in young people, not just because it's the right thing to do, which is it is, but because every time I go to a business, they tell me that young people are coming out of school, not necessarily having the hard skills they need to compete in our economy. And then, I hear from a lot of small, but maybe everybody else doesn't, that there aren't enough resources for those of them that are here. And so as I think about the things, the foundations of what it takes to build an excellent city, this is reflective of that. This is not reflective of a bunch of pie-in-the-sky things. I think it also, at least in my view, keeps us from the next time that we have the opportunity to do vision, whether I'm here or not, that the most visionary thing that we can do is just pay for the things that we got to do every day. That the vision projects are things that help us jump the line in a lot of other cities. And so I can appreciate that, and I get that there's a level of trust and understanding as we're all working together. But I think right now it's a conversation with the 10 of us. And you all have a very powerful vote that I hope you take on November 19th, no matter which the direction you decide to go. But I do feel like citizens in the city, they see what's going on around town. They understand that there's a need for us to do something differently. And I think we should give them the agency in helping us decide what that differently should be. And I think we should give them that decision at the ballot box.
Yeah, and you and I will just see differently.
Sure, and that's okay.
On that, because I really do have to be able to vote for something at the ballot box, and vote for something here as well, since I'm going to vote in
100%.
two different
100%.
locations. And the trust issue is I have to trust you on the business closing fund, you and your administration. I have to trust you on the children, youth, and families part, which I really.
That is, so I will say.
I don't really have enough information.
That
So
is-
in 14 days, I have to.
No,
trust somebody.
Counselor, you don't have to trust me on that, because these are all things that will come from the budget process. So I'm telling, so you maybe just trust me enough to say, yes, these are these priorities, and we're gonna put them, and the mayor's gonna advocate for those as we go through the budget process. But you're the chair of the council, and you guys are the appropriators. And so I realize that those are all gonna be things where I'm gonna have to go and fight for. And I do trust the 10 of us. So I mean, and you don't have to trust me on those things. I understand that.
But we're putting something out to the voters saying $7.5 million will be used for a business closing.
No. I sent that to you guys. Somebody else sent that out. So I give everybody around this table a view of what, just like when I submit a budget in the beginning of the year, and then we all come together and figure out what changes. That was not I didn't send that out publicly, but that was to demonstrate, we know we have this need around homelessness. We know that I imagine everybody would have wanted to know the numbers around public safety. I imagine there would have been some curiosity as all this conversation about children and youth, what will we do with it? I imagine there would have been some conversation about this. And so that was no different than budget documents that I would transmit to the council to have a conversation about how I would spend those resources. But at the end of the day, unless there's a part of the charter I don't know, I don't have the power to go down to the budget process and say, this is mine and mine only, I don't care what the 9 of you think.
Yeah, and I guess that's why I'd like us to spend a lot more time collectively deciding where we could put those dollars before we go out and ask the public to decide as well. Given that we will only technically have 14 days, because you're very focused in on the February vote. If we're focused in on an April vote or a June vote
So one of the things,
it gives us more time.
And I'm glad you brought that up, Counselor, because I will say, I will acknowledge, I meant to acknowledge this at the start, and also maybe the additional couple weeks wouldn't have met the moment, but it was, really, this is a conversation that I believe, I'll go back and check the calendar, started very directly early August. And the goal originally was that the council would have from this day right now to December 3rd before you had to go. I think December 3rd was that date before we would have to actually go vote. Additional couple weeks with the holidays in there. It was because we get 60 days ahead of February 10th to get there. There's a state legislative race that impacts part of Osage County, which added the time necessary to 75 days, which cut it down to where you got from the 5th to the 19th. And so And so I will acknowledge, that's the reason why we're not having a conversation around a general obligation bond, because we really actually do have to come together around very specific projects for that. But you asked why not April? I think there's some sensitivities around other things that are happening across our community that are gonna have to be communicated with voters in April. I think that any date after February, it's available to us, right? Like, I mean, you can't just pick any date, it's available to us, means that whatever we do, whatever voters decide to do, and I'm sure everybody around the table feels good about this, the conversations about how we actually appropriate that would happen outside the regular budget process. And I don't, for me, I don't think that's incredibly healthy. But lots of folks can disagree with me on that. And so my fixation on the February date, there's a business case for it. I think we have to provide some certainty for how we're gonna invest in these things. And this is not just, and I know it feels that way, just the mayor coming and saying these things are important. You know, I do believe that oftentimes the conversations that business leaders and others have with me is fundamentally different maybe they have with other folks. And, you know, I'm not sure I would be here pressing this hard this early on in my administration for something that could be as controversial as it is if I didn't believe that it was critical, if I didn't know that it was critical. And I think there's a lot of things we can say about how processes have worked in the past. I think there's some good and there's some bad. But the reality is what I believe is true is that we have citizens that have been watching. And I think they're getting a little frustrated with us telling them we don't have money to do stuff, we don't have the resources to do stuff, because they're still living with those realities every day. And again, I keep erring on the side of, I think there is some boldness associated with it, I absolutely do. But there are some realities about this community that we have to be honest about and we have to be aggressive with dealing with. And I think we have to bring voters into that conversation.
All right, thank
Yeah,
you.
I'll let someone else go.
Yes,
But let me just
a long
say
list.
one other thing. We can't do very many things as a council in 14 days. We couldn't even get the median safety ordinance or Human Rights Commission related. Well, I know, but.
I would-
know what you mean.
Literally
But
facts.
there's a 20% tax increase on the table
I don't-
that we're discussing publicly for the first time, and we're supposed to vote on in 14 days. And our typical normal process is to do the easy stuff in 14 days. This is very, very complex.
You know, I agree. I'm not sure we should ever brag about how long it takes us to do stuff. But I would also say that the challenges we face are not new. And I don't think anybody around the table is ignorant to them. And I think we're just going to disagree about now being the time to address them. And I think that's okay. We're just going to disagree with that. But I would have a lot more sensitivity to that if I thought there were 3 people sitting around the table that hadn't had a conversation like this before. If there were 3 people around the table who thought that we're perfectly fine where we're at and we don't need to do anything additionally, I think to me, it is slightly disingenuous to suggest that it's been 14 days only that we have been exposed to these ideas.
Oh, I'm
And
saying
still-
14
so-
days from today until the day we vote.
I understand, but I'm saying it's not 14 days. I mean, this is a conversation for
truly
a
it
very,
is.
no, since we've been talking about it. Yeah, I get, look, I mean, I would imagine, if I go out, with anything and I told people like, hey, I know this is a really big problem of yours, and, you know, maybe in a year, I'll have a conversation thinking about how to solve it. I think we have to be a little bit quicker and more nimble in how we solve problems. And if I knew that this was the first time we were having this conversation and this hadn't been several months in the making, I would be a lot more sensitive to that. And I totally understand where everybody is. I'm trying to, because I want to certainly make sure my comments are aligned to the level of respect I have for the people around this table, because I do. But sometimes it does get a little bit challenging when it's like, we haven't heard about this until the last 14 days. Like that is accurate. And I think that we, at least in my view, and this is just where we're going to differ, and you guys have a significant amount of power and authority in what happens here. I think we're going to differ quite significantly on our view on the severity and the nimble and quickness in which we need to meet the need in this community, and that's okay. Like, that's why there's a council and a mayor. Like, there's an easy way to settle those disagreements. You all will be able to make that determination, but it is, as you mentioned, it's just something we're going to disagree about. We're working
And just for the record, I'm just talking 14 days between now and the day of the vote, that we're talking publicly about it, and then never having the opportunity to go out with a detailed package to
Yeah,
the public.
but I do think on the
Can I-
detailed package is challenging. Well, I mean, the detailed package is challenging because it is always going to be something that's going to go into the budget process for us to talk about. This is not, we've got to break ourselves from thinking this is just like the vision package or IoT3. It isn't that, and I think that's, what we have to embrace and still, but I understand.
So here is the order. Counselor Dector Wright, Counselor Dutton, Counselor Bangle, Bellis, and Gilbert. And, this is, we're excited to hear you speak, so I'm not saying shorten your answers at all, but want to definitely.
Did you hear how long the first question was?
Right.
Let's kidding.
No, don't worry.
I'm just kidding. That was a joke. That was a joke.
Counselor Dector
So we
Wright.
got important stuff to
Thank
do,
you,
but
Chairman.
we can loosen up a little
Thank you,
bit.
Mayor, for being
Everyone
here.
will take a breath.
Everybody looks like,
Thank you,
ooh, like,
Chair
oh, it wasn't a
Lakin,
burn, it was just a comment.
Yeah.
Let's move on. I have the floor now.
Yes, please
Thank
go
you.
ahead.
Thanks for being here. Thank
Sure.
you, Chair Lakin. Yeah, these kind of discussions take a lot of time. I would suggest the next time it comes up for discussion, we put it on at 1 o'clock so we can really dedicate the time and not feel, people can be here, but we know that other people are on the agenda. Couple of just clarifiers. Today's the first time we as a body is talking about what we're going to ask voters potentially to do. So I do want to just state that, yes, I attended all 5 of the community conversations. Not one time in those conversations was the problem solving mentioning let's raise sales taxes. So to be clear about what Councilor Lakin is saying is at this point, we don't have time, now that it's on the table and out in the public, to go have those conversations. They're happening right now. And with the announcement on Monday, media picked up on it, and so we're already having a community conversation about what this is and is not. That has totally gotten away from what is possible. I'm hearing people think this is how you're funding the reparations package. This is
Well, I will
how
also
we're-
say, what do you say to people who say that?
I say, no, there's been a private trust established, here's the links, but people are confused. People have heard that we have $15 million deficit on our budget. Is this to backfill it? I'm like, we actually don't have a $15 million deficit on our budget. They know we just took a vote to do a $15 million settlement. They're asking if that's why our budget is. So we are in the weeds, and we have expert advisors around us all the time really clarifying, but you can even hear today the question. So I just want to clarify that the revenue enhancement, winning the next decade memo from the 21st is not, that's not what we're talking about today. That's just, that's what I just heard Councilor Lakin referencing, but it's like, no, we can still decide how the
Do you want
dollars are
me, do
used.
you want me to respond to that?
Yes,
I will,
please.
I'll be happy to. First, I don't know if we should give voice to people who say things that I believe to be inherently race baiting, so I'll say that, and I don't think that's appropriate. But on the other side, I think it's true on how the budget process works. What you guys got in the Winning the Next Decade document was a reflection of what we have heard from the experts on what it's going to cost for us to meet the moment of homelessness. It is what we know it costs to provide for the raises with police and fire, provide downtown public safety, and the community violence intervention programming. So just straight up numbers on those. It was $15 million to invest in youth workforce and out-of-school time, because that is a priority of this administration, and I think it's critical that we invest in young people. And it was $7.5 million in economic development money, prioritizing businesses that exist here to make sure that we can support this local economy. And then there's a lot of cleanup stuff, as I mentioned before, animal services, municipal court-related stuff, the employee retention resources that were all in there. That was reflective of, because the question has been, well, if we got it, how would you spend it? That's how I would propose we go about that spending. As you all know, the budget process works. I submit to you every year how I would spend the money that we have. There are always changes that are made to it. And so what I was expressing to Counselor Lake, and the reason why this wasn't public everywhere is that if we're gonna have a conversation about how we would spend those resources, that would be my proposed way in which I would spend those resources. And that's what was reflected in that Win the Next Decade document. I think that's something that we talked about at length when we had our private conversation.
Right, so for the public who's just hearing all of this for the first time, really what's on the table is, do you want to pay more sales tax to put $80 million into the general fund that then every year the council and the mayor would negotiate, unless it goes into a dedicated fund like Counselor Lakin has just brought up that we've already well established for public safety. Maybe there's other buckets that we hone in on. I think there's a confusion, and we've talked about that. The process for me has felt very topsy-turvy, little snatches of information, media reports, then for me correcting the record. Some people think the vote is today, and if we vote today, their sales taxes are going up. So when we talk about the amount of public engagement that it's going to take to really get people to know, one, what we're potentially asking, if we can even get to that place, and two, what they're signing up for, it's going to take time. I did want to just amplify that the sales tax sheet that the mayor referenced, I think, is from Auditor Picard's special project fiscal year 25 budget analysis report that he sent us in September. There was a little breakout of nearby communities. My community borders Bixby and Broken Arrow. I don't have an appetite to necessarily go beyond what Bixby and Broken Arrow charge in sales tax because, as we know, Broken Arrow is the third largest city in the state. They're growing in their retail sales tax offerings. There's a lot of people that end up in the Rose District instead of Cherry Street right now for a myriad of reasons. My district generates the biggest portion of retail sales tax in the city. That's a blessing and a curse. The blessing is we've got retail sales tax. The curse is my community also has the least amount of trees, the least amount of walkability, the highest rate of pedestrian auto accidents, and just traffic nightmares. I mean, there's pluses and minuses, right? And so we talk about, like, how do we activate Northwest Tulsa? How do we get into East Tulsa? And kind of, I know urban planners hate that we sprawl, but we overnight quadrupled the size of our city, but we've overinvested in South Tulsa in all the commercial and retail development from 71st at Highway 75 all the way across the city. And with that comes the responsibility to make sure we don't inadvertently drive shoppers out of the city to shop. I know a lot of people think that is not a concern. I'm already hearing from Monday's talk in the public to today about how I can go to 111th and Memorial and shop at the Bixby Lowe's or the Bixby Reese's every bit as much as I could go to 71st. And, that's not the same for somebody in Counselor Hall Harper's community, but it's definitely a consideration for South and Midtown, I would say. I would say.
I do think, and I think those are real concerns. I do know there's people in Council Harper's district that right now go shop in Owasso.
Sure.
Because of an inability to, and Owasso pays a higher rate in sales tax. And I think if we look at Oklahoma City, and I'm not saying we should always compare ourselves to Oklahoma City, but they've been higher than us for a long time now, and I think they've grown just fine. And so, like, I don't feel like, and I understand the concerns, and and what I might say might not fully address those concerns. I still believe that the 0.7 of a penny still makes you incredibly competitive everywhere. So, I don't think you're getting yourself out of the competitiveness, but I will also say there are so many reasons to be opposed to a sales tax increase. There's so many reasons why you don't do it in your first year as mayor, because it's hard to do, and it's not fun to do, and there's 1,000 reasons not to do it. But as we look at the challenges that we face right now, there isn't a pathway to take care of those things. And so I'm not going to say that those aren't reasonable concerns, because they are reasonable concerns. And I'm not going to make the comment, because I don't want to say next to be misconstrued, that, those concerns keeping you from doing the things that are necessary for us to generate the resources that the math tells us that we need means you don't care about those issues, because I do not believe that, by the way, and I want to make that clear. But that is the choice that we're making. We're making the choice that we're not going to invest in these things because we think that maybe people might go shop somewhere else. And I believe that every time, most of the time, when Tulsans have had the opportunity to invest back in their community, if they got confidence that we're going to meet the moment on issues that matter, I think that they're very receptive to that. I think citizens understand the situation that the city is in. I also, from a political standpoint, recognize this is not something very popular to do. And so I'm not here because I think it's fun, or I'm not here because I want Tulsa to get smaller. I'm here because I want Tulsa to grow. And the cities that grow and they do well are cities that take care of their challenges, the cities that invest in the core things that matter, and the cities that make investments into the future. And that's what that document is reflective of. And so we might disagree if that's something we should do, but it is a little, it's interesting to sit here knowing there are folks who have said we need to be investing in all these different things, who are now saying, yeah, but not right now because of what might happen, even though we know right now we got a homelessness challenge that continues to grow, even though we know right now we don't have the public safety personnel that we need, even though we know right now that we have significant challenges when it comes to young people in this community that impact public safety and everything else. So we know those things exist. And I just don't think that we're in a space right now where we can wait on somebody to bail us out of it, I guess is kind of my deal. And so I don't disagree that all those things are concerns. They're very reasonable concerns, and they aren't going to change. It's the reason why these things are hard, because we're making a decision on, do we want to give people the opportunity to invest in things that are hopefully going to put Tulsa in a better spot.
I have some other things, thank you.
Sure, I imagine so.
I'm not challenged by making tough decisions. I've definitely had to do it up here since I got in this seat. Who funded Clutch?
I believe it was the group of business leaders, the Tulsa Leadership Council, I think is what they go by now, if I'm not mistaken.
So that's one of the questions I got, is why did we spend city dollars and
We didn't spend-
didn't
we didn't- we didn't- we
correct?
didn't-
But again, when it's like Clutch says that we need $30 million, or as Mr. Canfield did our math, 60 million for 3 years, then 30 million. Then the first question I got is, well, when did you guys hire these people? How much did it cost? And when you hired them, did you hire them knowing that they would ask for a sales tax increase? And I was like, we didn't hire them. I can't tell you who did.
Yeah, to be clear, Clutch did not ask for a sales tax increase.
Right, I know that, but I'm trying to share with you the messaging right now.
I mean,
And I'm
like-
reflecting back to you, literally, emails, text messages, Nextdoor tags, Facebook messages. I had a town hall on Monday, the questions I'm getting. I know that we didn't hire Clutch. I know that Clutch just said, here's how we here's how we could maybe solve the problem based on best practices that have worked in other communities like Tulsa. To Councilor Lakin's point, we had a very short presentation where that was revealed to us for the very first time, and that was a week ago. There are people at this table, including myself, who have done a very deep dive on homelessness, housing, mental health, every week for hours at a time, despite some rhetoric out there, all publicly posted, videos, agendas, minutes. You can go to Tulsa Council, go to 3H Task Force, look at it. We had business at the table, we had healthcare at the table, we had frontline providers at the table. So when you say, this is not the first time we've had these conversations about what it's going to take, that is absolutely true. There's people at this table that didn't have those conversations. They got a Clutch presentation last week with a big price tag on it. And the public did too. So I think it's great that we're actually being realistic about what it's going to take if people really want to end street homelessness. I said it last week, I'll say it again. That 30 million doesn't contemplate HUD dollars shrinking back, which we know may be a possibility.
Yeah.
That 30 million does not contemplate what it takes to do eviction mitigation that we know needs done. So I am a process person, we've talked about this. For me, the process is as important as the outcomes that we want to achieve. Collaboration and consensus building is what I've done here since I got here. It's what I'll do when I'm not here anymore, because I think there is such a variety of opinions, knowledge base, and priorities that people have. So, yeah, it's not new to us at the table, but it is new to talk about it in this way, in this Like, the timing couldn't be worse when people are literally not sure how they're gonna pay their rent, how they're gonna put food on their table, how businesses are gonna pay their health insurance premiums and maintain their staffing. All the things that people in our community are feeling, we feel as individuals and as representatives of people that have a variety of needs that are always greater than the dollars. I think we have a municipal election in August. I think the citizens of Tulsa know that in August, they will be asked to focus on the city. All 9 of us are up for a reelection, and charter amendments will be on there probably if we can get to that work. I don't know when the franchise agreement goes on a ballot, but I don't know if that's August. For me, the other part of the discussion about calling a special is there's costs involved. It costs money to run an election. We know this from having had to call a special election for the PSO franchise agreement. And in the grand scheme of things, is it a couple $100,000? Probably. I don't even know. I haven't gotten a price tag on it. I've also been told, oh, well, if we do it in April, then, we have school stuff. There's no acknowledgement that some of us serve in districts where that school doesn't have elections, right? So I just feel like, for me, since I got to City Hall in December of 2018, we have been faced with huge crises. We've had floods. We've had tornadoes hit the city. We've had a whole pandemic we had to serve and lead through when upstream of us, decisions weren't being made that needed to be made. So I know how to make hard decisions. I know how to make life or death decisions, and I know several people at this table do too. I also know how to make an informed decision, and one that is not chaotic and not feeling like some people have information and then other people are getting snatches of information. And to Councilor Lakin's point, the people that need the information are the citizens of Tulsa. Whether they can get out to vote in February, April, June, August, or never because they live in our city and can't vote, or they work in our city and live in nearby communities, so we'll be subject to some of the things we're asking for. I don't agree that there's no pathway to do the things that we need to do. We've done it. My first 2 budgets here were cut budgets. Now, did we have to furlough people? Did we have to make some really hard decisions? Yes. But right now, we have a historic $1.117 billion budget. Have our costs gone up? Yes. Have our materials costs greatly gone up? Yes. I don't feel that we've looked at all the revenue sources that we can possibly explore, at least in this in the context of this conversation. I think we're about to have another one. But there's some other things. I also am not 100% sure that some of the things that we say that need funding are the accurate number, like I just said. I know that the $30 million that Clutch said is for a very specific approach to a very specific high priority that all of us say that we want to really move the needle on. But what I don't want to do is go so fast that we throw these dollar numbers out there, and we probably can get it passed. You're right. Tulsans do show up and they invest in this community every time. I've been on 2 packages where we've had to do the work and get people to understand what we're asking and what it is and what it's not going to be. But when you throw this $30 million out, we're going to activate and we won't see street sleeping. Until evictions become a thing that
But I mean.
adds more people into the homeless
Yeah,
pipeline.
but that's the whole deal. This is about building a system where you get there. There's part of this that the IoT housing dollars is going to help with that. The goal is to make sure that your inflow of homelessness is less than your ability to house people. So that's how you build a good system, that people can be housed in 45 days or less, that people don't become homeless after we serve them. This is not saying, hey, you know what? HUD dollars, we're going to replace HUD dollars. We're not going to replace HUD dollars. We're going to meet the need that we have in this community. And we have a real need right now. And what I keep hearing, which is like the thought that, oh, this consulting group came in, they just put their finger in the wind and said $30 million is not true and is not accurate. And I would also
So we
say,
need to
like I
have more
do,
conversations
I would
about
also
that,
say,
Mayor.
well, I mean, I hear that we've had a bunch of conversations about
Not
it.
with Clutch.
And understood. But I feel like, and I don't think this is true, and I don't know if it's true, it's that if if we're saying, oh, we're gonna wait to see what happens at HUD, and we're gonna wait for this, and we're gonna wait for that, and wait for that, we're gonna wait forever to do something that we know is impacting people every single day.
Let me be super clear, I'm not
And so-
saying wait for
and so-
those things,
but-
I'm saying we need to engage the public as a collective with an understanding, which I, right now, don't have.
You don't know what
And
7/10 of a penny raises, and you don't know the challenges facing this community.
We don't have very hard numbers related to, like, the average, there's a lot of.
No, I'm
information.
talking
A
about
business that
what it
spends
generates.
$100,000 a year is going to see about a $700 additional tax on top of what they already pay, on top of their increased labor costs, on top of their increased
Yeah,
healthcare
but-
benefits if they provide them.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's not insignificant.
So I'm not saying it's insignificant, but
It's
also
not.
think those businesses deserve making sure that people who are unhoused don't have to sleep outside of their
I
business. To
agree.
making sure that we can respond to emergencies when they have them. We have convenience store owners who say it takes us too long to respond to stuff, and I have to say, oh, we don't have enough officers, and so deal with it. So what do they have to do? They have to hire their own security. There are costs that people are taking on because we are not doing the job that we know we need to do. And I'm not saying we're doing it because we choose not to do it. I'm saying just things have changed dynamically from the past, and we're at a spot right now where I think we have to make the decision to change. I understand that costs are going up, and I mean, I don't have to be lectured about that. I know that's a real thing. I also know that when everything else fails, people are still going to depend on the city of Tulsa to deliver things, and we are not in a position where we can do that.
I know
it's
with that assessment.
Yeah, sure,
We've
sure.
been doing it with far less resources.
So so I guess if we've been doing it, why do you get a group of business owners who say, this is ridiculous in this town, we need to do something about this, if everything is fine? I'm not saying everything is horrible, but I'm saying we have real needs that we have to meet. And that's probably maybe where we have the greatest disagreement here, is that I'm maybe the one person who thinks that, and maybe I'm wrong about it. Maybe you're right. Maybe it's like everything is absolutely fine and we don't have anything
Well,
else.
I appreciate
anything
that
else to
business
do.
owners
Yeah.
are calling you and sharing their pain.
It's not just business
It
owners, it's
is
people in the community.
residents
It's people in the
in
community
my
as well.
community that are on fixed incomes, and they can't do
100%.
one more thing. As Counselor Bella said, we've already raised water rates. We know why we've had to do that, because
then-
people that
then-
sat
then that
here
means-
didn't have the
then that
courage for
means that-
10 years to do it.
Well, I mean, I think we're probably headed down that same path.
I don't think so,
And so,
Mayor,
like,
but I do
would
think that
say-
we're not gonna get to February, so
And that-
I
and
will
that-
stop.
and that- and that's o- and
my
that's
part
okay,
and
but
let it go to the next one, Chairman.
I do believe, and I understand that, I do believe we are at a spot right now where we just have to get serious about our challenges, and I think that, and I appreciate the disagreement on it, but I guess what I would roll back to, whatever the council decides, I hope we are aligned on the fact that we know there's a need to address significant issues in this community, and if we can't agree there, then we got a big problem. That is not a February problem or an April problem or an August problem. It's a fundamental difference in how we see the challenges facing the city.
I unequivocally agree there are more challenges than dollars, because we've done it on every tax package. And to the people that criticize how fast those packages have gone, to Counselor Lakin's point that he shared all the engagement, every time you get to the bottom of that list, there's already we already have a list now for IoT 4 because of IoT 1, 2, and 3 that just didn't rise to the level of urgency. So I definitely understand that revenue is a need for capital, for operations, for all of the things. I don't agree with the process right now, and that's where I am challenged. I think if we could have a conversation about doing a thoughtful conversation like we're doing now, but maybe on a very dedicated meeting where we have a handout, a slide deck. I mean, I'm looking in my emails trying to see if we're still talking about the document we got in September.
Yeah, I mean,
the one we got 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
certainly people here would like to have something that they can download and look at. So maybe after today, we can have something that, like, all the discussion to now is on this sheet of paper.
Yeah.
But
Well,
It's all
I-
right. Well, thank you, Counselor.
I just want the public to know we're not going to go faster than their understanding. I'm going to say that. I'm not going to go faster than my community understands what we're even discussing, let alone what we potentially would be asking them.
Right.
I think that's a good awareness of what we're
I have
discussing.
something to say, but let's kick it to Counselor Dutton.
Thank you, Counselor Archie. So, I've been, I appreciate the conversations, Counselor Lakin and Counselor Dector Wright, Mayor. So I'm looking at the median income for District 3. It's 38.7 thousand. Tulsa as a whole is 61,000. That said, Owasso median income is 67, Broken Arrow 86, Bixby 99, Jenks 102, Glenpool 77, which are all way higher than District 3. And so we're asking citizens that make $38,700 a year in my district to vote on an increase when we are, right now, this day, having food insecurity issues due to the federal government shutdown, SNAP benefits, federal grants we can't rely on at all this year so far. And Oklahoma in general ranks 10th in the nation in money received for federal grants. I'm unable to find the breakdown specifically for Tulsa, but even with Healthy Minds, just a month ago, released information that 750 billion in revenue that would normally come from the substance abuse mental health, 449.3 million will not be received due to federal grants. So we're talking, as had been spoken earlier, that at a median income of 38.7 for my district, with the increase, I know that my utility bill, my electric bill has doubled. And with the salary that we make here on council, you know, I'm below poverty or at poverty level. And the idea of paying even $84 a month more in taxes or a year is substantial to single parents and is substantial to senior households. Also,
So I want to make clear
that-
that the $84 a month is not, I don't.
Well, I'm just-
Okay, I just wanted to be clear, like, that's.
So, right,
that's a-
well, it could be, I know it's not a year, but.
Yeah,
bottom-
not a month, like, I
We just
want
need
to
some
be.
spreadsheets.
That's
Yeah,
what, I just want to
well,
be clear, like,
that's
it's, no,
where-
we're not
okay,
talking
right,
about
so-
$80 a month for
Well,
anybody.
that's because we haven't received information.
Yeah, well, I
we
mean, I
haven't
asked the
received
question about
supporting
the, I got to
documentation.
ask the question about the food there
Yeah,
earlier, and I mean,
but-
the sales tax is a little bit tougher, but,
But
to,
the bottom
I'll
line
do
is,
the,
and
I'll do the
and
math
I'll-
on what it would take
I'll
you
finish in a
to
moment.
be able to get
So-
$84, but.
I would appreciate, we don't have the documentation to present to our constituents.
Sure.
I would like a breakdown of all of these funds that we're talking about. I still don't know, we're talking about these breakdowns for public safety. What does that look like? Anybody with a small business has to come up with a small business plan if they're gonna get a loan, and it has to have broken down data as to what the forecast looks like, what they plan on making, their outcomes basically, and I haven't
So
received.
are you talking about public safety specifically?
I'm talking about the whole thing.
Well, so.
I'm also
I was just.
talking about the fact that my constituents and what I'm hearing is they aren't understanding because they don't see the results of increases within the district.
Yeah.
We don't have a community center, which I've talked to you about.
Sure.
Our only library closes at 6 PM. I mean, these are all issues, food security issues.
So could I just address some of that maybe? I can't, I'm not the president of the United States, so I
Right.
can't help
I
on the
get that.
federal cut deal, so, and I hate that for constituents as well. I also can't speak to the underinvestment in District 3, but it's certainly something that I am very much concerned about, and whether it's a community center or a library, whatever the case may be, all those things cost money, I will say, so it's like impossible to have one without the other in some ways. But additionally, I also know that District 3 deals with a lot of the challenges that are outlined in the things that I talked about before. Homelessness is a huge issue in District 3. Public safety is a challenge in District 3. I think from a student outcomes perspective, District 3 is one of those districts that's really impacted by it, and certainly it's the impact of cuts and those types of things. I think that's 100% correct. I also think that, you know, you have to meet this conversation with a high degree of accountability. I think what's different about the federal government, what's different about the state government, not criticizing anybody at any one of those levels, is they're not running into people at the grocery stores and in community groups every single day, looking them in the eyes and telling them that you can't do anything about their issues or just dealing with their frustration because there are cuts other places. Councilor Dr. Wright mentioned it, like these upstream challenges. I was in the legislature for 8 years. We took a series of votes to eventually raise revenue, and you heard it the other day. Our state leader said we have more money than we've ever had, right? And I'm not saying that's where we want to be. We're just sitting on tons of money. But the state, whether it chooses to or not, has the ability to meet the challenges that the state faces. The city of Tulsa does not have that same ability. And so I represented House District 72, so I had part of your district when I was in the legislature. And so those were my constituents then, they are my constituents now. I know they have challenges. I think those are challenges we'd be smart to be able to deal with and address. I certainly know that doesn't come without some level of sacrifice, so I don't want to lean into it, oh, this is not a big deal. It is a big deal. It's 100% a big deal. If you spend, I think the number is, if you spend $100 on something, I think this would cost you another 70 cents. And so, I mean, that's not nothing. It is something. But on the flip side of that, it is us in an accountable way dealing with the issue of homelessness, something I know you really are passionate about. It's us dealing with making sure we bring our public safety professionals in line with communities of comparable size. It is dealing with the challenges facing young people all across the city, which I think is really important and we'd be smart to do. And I think it is about making sure we can invest in economic development for businesses that are here, something that I think is reflective in most of the conversations that we've had. I know it's hard when it's like, okay, how do we resource it? And so I want to say, like, I know this is a really tough thing, and it certainly has put us in a bit of a tense posture in some ways. But, you know, part of this is about investing and growing and being tight to outcomes. And I know, again, there might be some disagreement on if that's possible or how we do it, but I do think that the question in front of us is really, is this government going to do what's necessary to do the things that we've talked about for a long time and maybe have not always had the ability to act on?
So
Okay.
I'm just going to follow up real quick, and I appreciate that. I appreciate what you're saying, but that still does not justify to my constituents.
Maybe not, maybe
an
not, maybe
increase,
not.
especially
And
in this short frame of time.
maybe not,
And-
but I would say then we are always going to be at the whims of the federal and state government, and they can decide Tulsa's future, and we never will be able to.
No, I understand that, but you're telling somebody that's $38,000 a year, let's take on more debt.
No, we're not taking
Well,
on more
with
debt.
sales
No, what
tax,
I'm telling them is,
they are.
what I'm telling them is, I'm going to invest in getting people off the streets.
I
I'm going to
understand
invest in
that.
public safety, and I'm going to invest in your
But-
kids, and I'm going to invest in
so-
your businesses. And so I think it's a little bit different. Like, I think it's okay to disagree, but like, I think even if we want to have this conversation later, so if timing's an issue and conversation's an issue, spending all the time talking about why this is horrible and how it's not going to help people is not going to be helpful for
Right.
that conversation.
And that's why we need
I-
working conversations with our constituents so that they have a clear
Yeah.
understanding
I
of
understand.
where we are going.
And I
with
understand,
all of it.
because I feel like what's happening, and I think this is okay,
Mm-hmm.
is that there is a discomfort with February. So we're trying to get on record to say all the reasons why I can't do it in February. I think what is happening in doing that is saying all the reasons why we should never do something like this, because, there are folks who are not going to be helped by this, who get taxed and we never invest in them, which is an indictment on every dollar that we've ever spent at the city if people don't feel it. And so I think, we ought to be looking at all of us for that. I think it's right. I do think there's a need for us to not only have more resources, but to be more accountable and making sure we're investing in places. And so I just think my caution would be, if you ever want people to trust what we do here, maybe we shouldn't spend so much time talking about how it's a waste of money.
Oh, I'm not saying it's a waste of money. I'm saying that I don't have anything to
No,
present to my
I appreciate that.
constituents.
That's fair.
That this is how it's going to work out, and this will also be how it benefits you as a whole and
That's-
our community in District 3. I mean, as it is, we already have 16.7% single parents.
I was raised by one.
And I was too,
It's one of the
and we
pushes
also
why, this
have
is one of the pushes why
13.
February is important to me. Like, and I'm okay with the disagreement here, but I do want to say, because it does give us the opportunity through the budget process to do those things. But I understand, like, that's still accelerated. I recognize that. But that is one of the reasons why I would love for us to be able to have that conversation in the budget process, which is the reason why the within the next decade stuff is not allowed in front of everybody, because the 9 people on the council have a tremendous amount of authority and agency in that process. It's a transparent process, and I would like for us to have a conversation how we wholly invest in the city at that time.
And
A lot of disagreement for that, and I understand.
Transparent, that's what I'm looking for too, is the transparency.
And I think the budget process provides that transparency.
We're going to go to Counselor Bangle, then Bellis,
Thank you.
and Gilbert.
Okay, first I want you to admit publicly that we're.
Don't you even, oh, I thought you were friends.
See how hostile?
No, you guys don't know what he said to me earlier. He said something to me earlier that I can't even repeat on a microphone.
It was a compliment. You're choosing to take it in
I'm
the
gonna tell you
wrong
what,
context.
no, hold on, wait a second. Just a word of advice for everybody listening. If Christian Bingle's gonna give you a compliment, do not take it, don't
Be
listen.
careful
Just
of
walk
the
away.
word. Pay attention to the wording. I just want to make sure that I have my breakfast every once in a while with you, because I enjoyed that, and I enjoy your company. So I kind of want to remove some of the emotion out of this. I will tell you, some of the things that you do, I see in myself. I've been working on some stuff in my own district. It is. Obviously, if I'm comparing you to me, obviously, it is a compliment. So I'm very impatient. I want to see results yesterday, right? And so some of the things that I've been working on, like the food truck and mobile vendor issue, I've been working on that significantly from the last 3 years. I've also talked about sales tax mitigation issues in my district, where we're focused on homelessness and housing development and the need to create that. And one of the developments that aligns along Councilor Dector Wright and I are in our district is a significant development, but we've had to spur the conversations about how we need certain commercial developments to mitigate the sales tax leakage to these bordering communities. And so that's always been a problem for me, is I feel like the city becomes over-focused. So I will tell you,
I'm sorry, over-focused, oh, I'm sorry, Counselor,
well,
over-focused.
it can be over-focused and laser-focused on certain issues, but neglect other
I got you,
portions.
sorry.
Right, so I'm not blaming you in any
No,
of
I just
that.
understand, what you mean. I got you. Yes,
Right,
sir.
so I will tell you, because I made that comparison of how we want results now, right? The issue for me is I wanted a grocery store yesterday. I want Buc-ee's here yesterday, right? But I know these aren't things that I can go to the voters and get immediately relief on.
Buc-ee's was not in that document.
I know it's not, but I just wanted to add that. So the thing is, for me, is this has kind of felt like a zip line process for me. You're a historical figure in our city. Having a 45-year sabbatical from raising taxes is a historical, in my view, a historical vote. February votes have typically had low voter turnout. But we'll tell you that collectively, this is the first conversation we've all had together, right? You and I have had a conversation, Councilor Lakin and I have had a conversation, but the rest of my colleagues, I haven't had an intense and deep conversation over it. Councilor Paul Harper and I just asked her casually yesterday, hey, where are you at on this? And she said, I've made up my mind. So that's the clarity and transparency. The problem is that when we had this conversation with Councilor Bush, myself, and you, and some of your staff, I said, hey, we've got to do some public engagement on this. This isn't something I can just go out and maverick myself, right? And I'm grateful for all my colleagues that have been through this multiple times in discussing these capital packages and their concerns. The problem for me is that I just don't feel like there's been a good, robust process in doing something that I feel is a historical vote. And I need to be able to justify what they're voting for, how those funds are gonna be spent, because nothing you said about the needs for funds and some of the issues that we're trying to address are wrong. I think we all at the table agree that some of these things have to be addressed. But in some of these issues where we have shortages of staffing and things of that nature, I've suggested policy changes that I've had huge resistance on for no reason and no cause, other than we just don't want to do it. And I'm okay with that.
I just got a question. So
Yes, sir.
One of those requests, I'm not aware of those requests, so I apologize.
Yeah, this is the one you and I talked about on the roof, when I had to go tell you not to jump with your cigar.
Oh, well,
So many followers.
Yeah.
I mean, you can just Google Chris Finkel policy requests and
Yeah.
it'll be in
so
the
this
top
is,
five.
so this is a couple of years ago
Right.
or something like that.
Yeah,
Oh, it
and
comes
so,
up every budget.
I've been talking about this for a long time, and so I feel like, I don't wanna rush a process that I feel like, because it has such a historical significance, even as you're a historical figure in our city, as Counselor Bella stated earlier, for most of us working, right, that $7 a month isn't going to break our bank. But I have constituents, and as I told you in the ride this morning, I've been on the phone all week until 10 o'clock at night from people calling me. And as we talked in our budget, and Counselor Dr. Wright said it perfectly, we didn't have people brave enough to increase our utility rates. They use it as a political tool to get reelected. And so now we're having to make up for that in the back end. So when we go to the voters and we ask for these different funds or a sales tax increase, maybe it's not 7/10, maybe it's 4/10, maybe it's 5. And as we talked about this morning, a little bit, I want to see a 2.0 of the 3H task force. Those folks spent 2 years of intense discussions. That needs to be narrowed and laser focused now, and I want to know what those numbers are specifically. I don't know Clutch. I don't know who these people are. But I do know my colleagues here who've spent a significant time in that homelessness discussion, and what we need to see what that specific figure looks like year over year, and have come up with a strategic plan of those funds.
Yeah.
You're gonna let me finish, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So in this discussion, and as I said, as I characterize it as a zip line discussion, there were 3 parts of this initial proposal, right? Initially, it was the sales tax, the GO bond, and then, of course, what I think is a no-brainer is the hotel motel tax, right? But now we're out of the GO bond portion. We've kind of said, well, we're not ready for that.
Do you know why?
That's not relevant to me, Mayor, and I'll tell you the reason why. If we're not ready for that, then we shouldn't be ready for this.
So I'll say one of the reasons why the GO bond is different is because we have to get really specific on projects we're gonna
Right.
fund, and that's not gonna come up every budget year for us. So like, it's a fundamentally different conversation, in my view.
Right.
And so, to me, that's why I have a lot of, and then the flip side is, at least in my view, and like people can disagree, is February 10th gives us the opportunity this budget year to address how we spend things that we're gonna come to the general fund. So to me, that's why why from a business process, I'm comfortable with those things being separated out, because I would like for the resources generated from this conversation that we're having to be part of the budget process in a way that the general obligation bond would not necessarily need to be part of that process. And to be clear, like right now, everybody's heard the news. We're working through how much public safety center is gonna cost. We're working through how much it's gonna cost to build a jail and municipal court, which there was no plan for how that was gonna happen when I got here. We're working through what it's gonna take for us to make sure we invest in the BOK Center and the Convention Center. And those are all very specific, and not to mention all the number of other things that we need to get to. Those are all very specific projects I think lend themselves to a more traditional process because, we're putting things in the ground that are gonna be there for forever. We're not necessarily having the dynamic process where we're funding things based on need. And so that's why I believe that they are very different. And so like, I know you may say it doesn't make any difference to you, but in my view, when it comes to the role of the council and certainly the mayor and the process we have. That's why those two things are fundamentally different
Right.
in this case. So just
But
answering that question.
in this case, you know, when we're talking about a sales tax and you're talking about spending those on specific issues, right, like homelessness, public safety, and things of that nature, I kind of have to defer to the statements of my previous colleagues, you know, when you're injecting $80 million of fund, or tax funding into the general fund, and there's no specificity about how those funds are compartmentalized. Am I spending X amount of dollars? And I think that's really what our constituents want to see, because if you read on social media or on any platform, right, or even in our broadcast media or print media, some of the comments you read in there, I mean, they're misinformed and hyperbolic and just extreme. But the problem is because they don't have the information. They're so misinformed.
And I do.
And I don't feel like
I will say, yeah,
Mayor,
that's
I just
fair.
don't feel like we've gotten through a
That's fair.
robust
So-
enough conversation.
That's fair, and
Publicly.
I want to, because I think there's probably a lot more confusion for people who aren't on the extremes. But I want to be careful that we don't run this building by folks
I
on the
totally agree.
extremes, on that
But
deal.
usually those
And then I
statements
would-
are
and then-
made out of misinformation.
And then I will say
Or lack
additionally,
of.
you know, if we got this thing to vote on the 19th, I mean, we'd obviously build a campaign around informing people on all the ins and outs, because I'm not sure all those things are, I mean, if we did this a year from now, I'm not sure every person's going to understand everything. And then I'm not actually even sure that when we come to the budget process, like down to the penny, we're going to spend that on, down to the penny we're going to spend. Because what if we have, for example, less firefighters than we thought we would, or whatever, like, you know, so I mean, there are things that change within there. So I think that's the reason why you want to put it through the regular budget process. But I understand, you know, what you're saying. I do want to make it clear, there was a real business reason why we would separate the two because of that election that's coming up. And I'm not sure we would have had time for the general obligation bond anyway to get the kind of council engagement on specific projects that we need to fund. It just didn't seem like we had the time to do that.
And like I said, Mayor, I just don't, this just feels a little too ziplined for me. I'm not
Yeah, and I mean,
comfortable.
and I get that, and I will say
Because
this.
like I said, we've had a 45-year sabbatical from the last tax increase.
Yeah,
And to me, this is important to you even as a mayor.
it is, and this is the reason why I'm down here. I recognize this is important to me, but it's important to the city, and so, again, I'm not down here because it's fun to have this conversation, or it's something I
Sure.
wanted to do. The fact that, you know, coming, essentially the first person since Jim Inhofe to come and try to do something like this. So to be clear, it is not out of I really like shiny projects, I'm coming down here to do this.
Right.
It is because with all the efforts with the 3H task force and everybody else, the 2 years before I got here, homelessness grew over 20% both years. Because it's a tough deal to crack. We got an inflow of 3,100 adults every single year.
But I think that was from a more broad approach versus a
Under-
more focused approach.
Understood, and so I guess my point, fair, I think my point is that the next iteration of that is getting really, really specific about street homelessness, you know, increasing our shelter capacity, because I think the work that's been done on the affordable housing side is gonna catch up as well. But this is the moment where you begin to tackle that issue as aggressively as possible, and you do the things like we talked about this morning, for example. And there's a part of that where I think homelessness grew just 4% this year, as an example. So we're starting to see a flattening. That could spike again, and the longer we wait to figure that out, the more likelihood that spike's going to happen. It's going to be even more expensive on the back end. Now, again, lots of people can disagree, and I hear like we've had a lot of conversation. We've got a lot of things. I know a lot of investments have been made, but we are not where we need to be. And you're right. I probably don't have as much patience, but I do want to go make the case to voters to get this done. And everybody around this table might be right. They might, on February 10th, everybody around this table might be right.
Yeah, and I hope you're not
And-
taking
and-
this as we just think
But-
you're just coming up here willy-nilly.
I mean, it does feel like that a little bit,
Yeah,
but
so
what I want
that's
to
why
say
I said I
is,
want you to take the
but what,
personal.
yeah, no, I
This
understand.
is not personal.
I don't think it's personal. I think it's more so, no, I don't think it's personal at all. I actually don't. I don't think it's personal.
Well, luckily, there's some distance.
Yeah, I don't think it's personal. I actually don't think any of this stuff is personal. I don't think any of it's personal. I mean, I did take it personal when you said what you said about me earlier. It's fine. I did take that personal. But my deal is it's not about the personal side. There's not a person around this table I don't like. And that is gonna be true when I walk out of here. And so like, I wanna make that clear. What I think the difference is, what the delta is for me, is just the way in which we see the severity of the issues and the need to act more immediately. And what I'm asking the people around the table, and Counselor Lakin made a great point, I don't want to vote for something I don't know how I feel about it. It's a great point, and I appreciate that. My position is, I know there's a ton of voter education that has to happen.
Yeah.
I will go and do that. I'm not asking for February because it's a low turnout election. I got elected when more people voted in a mayor's race than ever before because there was a presidential election. So like, I'm not afraid of big electoral turnouts. But when it comes to meeting the needs of the city, I want to go make that case to voters right now so we can get serious about it as quickly as possible so we don't have to look people in the face anymore and say, we don't have the money to solve your problem.
So I just want to make two more points and then I'll
Yes, sir.
shut the hell up. Back to Counselor Bellis.
Don't say anything else
point.
about Buc-ee's. We're good.
Exactly. Thank you for saying it for me. So, back
Just
to
say it after
Counselor
every
Bellis's
statement.
point, right? You know, about increases in utilities. We're gonna do that, have to propose that over the next couple of years that I'm even aware of, right? And that's just back from 2023 when we had Eric Lee come to the table and talk about how we're underfunded in our infrastructure for our water and sewer. And so we're gonna have to come back to them. She brought up PSO, coming to the Corporation Commission and asking for that $10 increase. You know, that's been in the paper. I have seniors that are on fixed incomes where they're not going to see significant increases in that fixed income, and they're living off $880 a month. That $7 to working people is not going to be relevant, most likely. It just means you're not gonna get your Starbucks one day out of the month. The problem for me is that $7 is relevant to a person on a fixed income.
And I don't, Counselor, I don't disagree one bit, and it's gonna continue to be
That's
relevant.
who I hear
So-
from there.
I wanted to, just like you say you don't disagree with anything that I'm bringing, I don't disagree with that at all. Like, I don't. I also feel like, because we have all these things associated with a city our size that we have got to invest in. And it is tough. Those same folks, you know, on fixed incomes, like, they live in other parts of the state where the sales tax rate is higher. And we ought to be thinking about how do we mitigate it for them, by the way. I 100% believe that and would love to figure out ways in which we do that. I don't think we do enough for
But they
seniors
don't
overall
qualify
anyway.
for certain things
I
because
understand that.
they're not gonna get those assistances, and so.
I
they're
understand,
challenged.
I understand it. I mean, I think another challenge that we have is making sure that we're providing for appropriate public safety for those folks, making sure we are getting folks off the street. So, I mean, it is a set of very dynamic challenges.
I agree.
And so, like, I don't want anybody to think, and I don't, that I don't think about those things as well. I mean, I see those very same people. I know those folks, and they talk to me about those challenges. And so, it is, again, I think it boils down to, it is a tough conversation to have, which is why I would really like to have that conversation with citizens and let them decide. And maybe they say, no, city council's right. It's not the time to do that. Maybe it's never the time to do it. But I think if there was a time to give them the agency to do that, we're at a point right now where I think we have a reasonable shot to be able to address these challenges. I trust this group to go into the budget process and figure out how we make the investments that matter. But I know we're going to be stunted this year, just like we were last year, and we will be next year, unless we do something significantly different. And for me, and what I've seen, the 0.7 of a penny is a direction to go. Maybe complete disagreement on that, and that's fair, but I want to make clear, I understand that. I feel that. I know that those things are really tough, and it's a tough spot for everybody to be in, which is why I would like to take the case out to citizens.
Counselor Bellis?
Yeah, I think Councilor Bengal said a few things that I was thinking, and I appreciate the level set of, right, I don't think I'm hearing anyone here disagree about needing more resources. I don't think I'm hearing anyone here say that they don't think we should solve these really critical challenges. It's really, to me, and I also want to say, I don't think anyone here lacks a sense of urgency. I think it's a lot of the conversation I'm hearing is in some ways philosophical about like what's the best way to help people who are struggling, people who are suffering, working families overall, people on a fixed income, folks that are, retired, et cetera, in the face of some severe economic concerns and instability and ongoing challenges. So I just want to preface, I don't think anyone's lacking urgency or interest in solving an issue. It's more of the how and to what end and when. So I don't want to, entertain any false dichotomies, if we don't do X right now, it means we don't care. If we don't do Y right now, it means we don't feel urgent about solving these issues. I think it's more of how do we do this in a way that's strategically and transparently, with mutual accountability, gets everyone there together, because I know we all want to be able to very clearly explain to constituents what we're seeking to do here. I think it would be very, very helpful, and I know I've verbalized this before too, to really have substantive hard numbers about what this means for people. We're throwing around some ballparks, and I appreciate the kind of grocery estimate, but it would be good to have for a family of this size, this, for a business of this size, this means this. Even honestly, for the city, when we are purchasing materials that we need to build our stuff, it's going to add this. And again, maybe it ends up sounding largely marginal, as Councilor Bengal said, to a lot of working folks. It could be something that can make or break other people on a more fixed income. And so it would just be incredibly helpful. These are very calculable numbers that it would be immensely helpful, including for us to be able to educate constituents, to just have laid out. A lot of us, I think, are kind of those types of spreadsheet people. Doing anything at the municipal level is granular and nerdy and in the weeds for a reason, including because of the budget that we have to do here. That increase would also affect both more money in, but also we'd have to put some more money out for some of our costs, which, on the plus side, some of that would circle back.
But also what you've talked
Yeah.
about before, Counselor, maybe there's realized savings, there's
Yeah.
places we're investing that maybe upstream
Well, and that's
will
why.
shift.
Well, and that's why it would be helpful along with those hard numbers. Which again, I think these calculations are super feasible. I don't want them from Grok or AI, but I'm sure you could probably plug some stuff in anyway. But those, I think we should be able to figure out, and this has been mentioned by other counselors, that ROI, right? Hey, citizen, this might cost you this many more dollars a month, but if we invest in these three things, for every dollar we spend, this is going to come back to you in this way. For instance, you mentioned, right, we know that our housing and homelessness crisis is expensive for business owners, it's expensive for homeowners. There's a lot of, different, whether it's property damage or cleanup or people having to try to help someone who's dealing with a mental health crisis. There's a lot of different types of costs, and it would be great to be able to quantify, if we do this and invest in this way, then this is how it gets back. And I think one of the hardest things there, and I think I've mentioned this for something else on a different council agenda item maybe last week, is you also have to be careful related to that trickle-down economics factor. This will hit some of the lowest income people potentially the hardest. And how do we say that this actually gets right back to those most vulnerable people? And I think all of that case can be made. I actually really believe in what government can do for people when we're at our best. I think we have all of the people at this table in the room who want all of that, but I want to be able to spell it out with just actual numbers for folks. I'm an educator at heart, and I really care about making sure that people are informed and civically engaged, and right now it is, without some of those numbers, hard to message for folks. I have one of the highest volume council inboxes because I have a really engaged district, partially just because of proximity to, we're denser, we have proximity to a lot of downtown and services and so much else. I'm going to be honest with you all, I know I've hearing from people that they've been on the phone late. It's crickets, which for my district, which is unusual, which means to me, they're an opinionated group. It means that they don't know that this is going on or they don't know enough about it. And so I do want to make sure that we're having that opportunity to give people hard numbers, to inform them, because I know people really care, and I think people in our community believe in investing in Tulsa. I think people would be supportive, but to me, it is that process thing that's been brought up of how do we go through a process and give people information to bring them with us. And, I don't know an exact timeline for that. I don't think it's because of a lack of urgency, but I just want this to be, honestly, I want whatever we do here to be successful so badly that I want to do that on whatever timeline, with whatever type of community education, with whatever data gives it the actual best chance at success. And I'm worried with our crunch time, even though I know your point is, hey, we're just discussing if we're going to put it on a ballot right now, and then we have time before then to do more education. It would be helpful, like even before we would go to maybe vote on this in the next 2 weeks, to even know, okay, what would the community education process be after this? Like, it would help to know a process, even how are we going to continue to have a process at this table to talk about what this means for folks? I think it's just, we're all process people, is I think what I'm hearing, and I think it would just really help to have a much more laid out process.
Yeah, I don't necessarily fully disagree, but I think this is what, this is how I feel about it, and I could appreciate that. What I've attempted to do is work over the last several months to put some in front of you all that I think is appropriate for the future of the city. What I would like for the council to do, no matter how you decide, is to vote on that on November the 19th. If you guys vote to not send it to the ballot, I understand that for all the reasons that have been laid out here today. 100% understand it. And I would support the city council in working through your timeline to do whatever it is that we need to do to figure it out over time. And I would be happy to be a partner in that. But from the standpoint of, like, I think we have brought to the table, we're going to bring to the table. I think we will have to get back hard on working on the budget under the current sales tax rate, and would be very supportive of you all doing the community education process you feel is important to potentially get to a place at some point in the future. But what my ask is of this group is to take a vote on the 19th, and if all 9 of you vote no, I understand. If, some of you vote no, some of you vote yes, I'll understand. I think that it's important, from my view, that happens.
So some of the kind of calculations, can we get those before then?
Sure.
Okay,
I will.
that's
So
what I just-
today, the things that I've
it'd be
heard
really
today,
helpful.
the things I heard
Yeah.
today, I will make sure, and because I know there's still a lot of information that can be given over the next couple weeks, but I guess my deal is, and I'll do all that stuff. I mean, because I really want to get everybody to as comfortable a place as possible. That is my goal. So my goal is not walk away from here saying, y'all ain't mad, I ain't coming back. That's not, my goal is to get you all the information that I can possibly get you. But I'm doing it in service of you all taking a vote on the 19th. And I want everybody to vote their conscience and everything else, but I want the opportunity over the next couple of weeks to have a conversation with you all, public and in private, whatever the case would be, to get you the numbers that you need. And if that didn't get you to a comfortable place, I can only say I understand. I talked about, when I was at the state and we raised revenue, I voted against early revenue measures, and I got around to it. So I just want us to stretch to try to see if we can get to a comfortable place, because really, ultimately, my goal is to let voters decide. And can I get the folks around the table to get to a place where you're comfortable letting voters decide? So I mean, like, that's my goal over the next 2 weeks. So that means any information that you need, we're gonna get it to you. And if that still didn't get you there, I understand, but I've heard I think they're reasonable concerns, even though there's been times that may be a little chippy. I think they're reasonable concerns. And what you hear in me is not a level of, I hope it doesn't come across as disrespectful at all, because it's not what's meant. It's just a level of urgency that I know I'm not the only one that has, for the record. And I also recognize that as it relates to this and a lot of other things, because I'm here full-time all the time, I've just been looking at stuff ad nauseum, and I recognize that, like, building the coalition to get it done is a big part of it as well. So, like, that's what you hear from me. That's what you hear from me. So, like, I would like to push to get people to a comfortable spot. Even if they don't, I would like a vote to be taken on the 19th.
Yeah, just to reiterate real quick, just data-wise, it would be incredibly valuable and helpful to have for, maybe families of a few different size, or, just across a few income levels. This, those estimates of this would be this much more per month based on those factors, right? Whether it's like family of four, like maybe a single, college student, someone like, a retired
Seniors.
senior, yeah.
Single parents.
Single, yeah, just like some of those different, hey, if we're talking this family size, this income, or people at or below this level of the federal poverty level, whatever it is, some of that math, as well as if there's a way to just kind of hack at the, hey, because I think these are formulas that exist. I've seen stuff maybe through like the Brookings Institute, or you see this for healthcare, education, right? Like for every dollar you spend on this, you get this many dollars back. So like some of that, hey, if we invest in this way upstream in our city or city services, then it would save the taxpayer X number of dollars. So I think that would be helpful, like if there's a way to kind of make a little formula of like, hey, if we pour X in, you should see Y come out if we invest it successfully, or whatever that looks like. I just think that could be really valuable for us to be able to communicate with voters about what we're talking about here.
Counselor Gilbert.
Save the best for last.
Oh, no, we have more. I'm after you.
Okay. So I'll go really slow then. Just kidding.
Get us to the
Other.
I just, number one, thank you for coming and starting this conversation. I'm going to echo what others have also said about educating the public about this. We just had our small budget meeting last Wednesday, and we were told from finance that we actually have an increase in our sales tax revenue. So, we're up 1.4 million on sales tax revenue. Now, we might be falling behind on a few others, like water and sewer, only because we had a wet summer. So, but budget-wise, sales tax is actually up. So, with that, also, I appreciate your commitment to public safety. So you and I have had this discussion before, that when we did vision, I put together the public safety tax, made sure that it was dedicated for public safety. That included police, that included fire, that included 911 as well. So we made sure that that fund could hold 160 new police officers. We made sure that that fund could hold 75 new firefighters. We were trying to get to authorized strength with the public safety tax on the police side. We were trying to get to authorized strength on the fire department side. But also, we were trying to get to 4 to a truck with the fire. We were trying to get to 4 to a truck because there's a safety issue with our firefighters rolling up on a fire and only having 3 on a truck. There's a policy, and we have firefighters here that will talk to you about it. There is a policy in the department that when they roll up to a fire, if someone is in the house and they need to go in to do a search and rescue, they have to wait for another truck to arrive, because you don't go in alone. You go in with your partner, with a partner. So, but our fire department is the best because they will go in and try to find that person if they need to before another truck arrives. So, if we're looking at improving public safety, which I have heard over and over again today, then why are we not having the discussion of enhancing our public safety tax? So,
Counselor,
wait, hold on.
Okay, because
hold
we
on.
talked
Save
about
it.
this just
I
yesterday.
know, we did, but hold on. So when we did the public safety tax along with vision, we did community engagement over and over and over and over again. It wasn't me that decided we needed to get to authorized strength on the police department. It was residents in District 5, even back then, that were asking questions of what happened in the neighborhood. We just saw a police officer drive through. So they automatically thought that something tragic had happened in the neighborhood. Not that that officer was just doing an extra patrol in the neighborhood. So they were used to just officers coming through if something had happened. So we wanted to get to the part where we could do more community policing, better patrolling of officers going through their beats and meeting with the public, having discussions, talks with them, and building that trust within the areas that they patrol. So, when we talk about community dialogue and educating the public about why we need additional dollars, when I did the public safety tax, it was not an easy thing to do. Because we wanted to make sure that that money was dedicated specifically for that reason. That future mayors and future councilors could not move that money to a different pet project within the general fund.
Yep.
So we made sure that it was in a lockbox. We did a charter change that actually took forever for the governor to sign off on. It was not easy. So, if we are so focused and we are wanting to improve public safety, yes, I want to make sure that we do get 2-4 to a truck. I want to make sure that these guys on the back row are safe as they're out there fighting fires for us. Or if they are coming to our house because someone has had a heart attack or a stroke. I want to make sure that police officers do have backup as they're rolling up on a domestic violence that call that you don't know what's in the house. So I want to make sure that if we're going to make that commitment, that we're going to make the commitment to improve that public safety fund that is dedicated specifically for that purpose.
Yeah.
We have an item on our agenda this evening to approve the calendar for charter changes discussions. So that would be the perfect opportunity to start having these discussions and talking to the public again about why we need to improve.
Yeah.
And also the 7/10, I'm still having, I need better understanding of
Sure.
how we got to that 7/10. You have said over and over again, this is not a capital improvement package, that we have to talk about every single item on that capital improvement package and how much it's going to cost.
I'm saying it's
Right.
rigid, it's more rigid than when on the capital improvement
Yes.
side, yes.
But again, I'm on the same page as my colleagues here, is that we need to educate the public more on what the general fund is used for.
Sure.
I mean, I even get phone calls today, even asking about education. Why aren't you putting more dollars towards education? Well, we can't. That was the state that's to do that. But then I also get the question about, well, what about mental health? Why aren't you funding mental health better? Well, it's not really our purview to fund mental health, but we do have someone in the COPS, or someone with COPS at 911 Center to help with those phone calls.
Yeah.
So, which has really helped. So, I think that there's more discussion that needs to happen from my perspective. But I appreciate you starting the dialogue here today. But again, I just can't, I can't move forward on this until we have those discussions, not just
Sure.
here at our table,
Sure.
but out there in the public.
So, a couple things, and sorry, Council Archie, I know you're trying to get me out of here. If we're overperforming by 1.1 million, that means we get to use only 14 million in fund balance this year. So we still have that deficit, which I think is positive, but still doesn't get us to doing the things that we need to do. I would also say on the four-wheeler truck deal, it's like I understand that, I appreciate that, but we're gonna punt until later. I think citizens, at least, this is maybe where I'm wrong, I think they get the investment in public safety. I think they understand that public safety tax that
They
we
did
talked
it
about,
several
maybe
years ago,
they
until we
didn't, but
had that
it is a
discussion
testament
with-
of the fact that we've been talking about this stuff for a very, very long time. I think voters are a little smarter than we give them credit for. And so I think, you champion that all that time, I think has probably been light years of education for folks. And I'm not exactly sure it is today, but I know last year in the budget year, that public safety tax underperformed by about $838,000. And so those things are starting to slip. It's serving its purpose, but we don't have enough to do it. And maybe there's some disagreement. Councilor Lakin pointed out, you got to check on the unions and all that kind of stuff. I don't think they would tell you they have everything they need to do the job that we ask them to do every day. And while there might be some disagreement in other areas we might invest in the city. I think there's very little disagreement from them that it would be helpful if we got raises out there, if it would be helpful if we made a commitment to getting the authorized force. Maybe there's some questions about what that authorized force needs to be. I know we're not there right now. And so for me, I think those are all things that those are known knowns. And we're saying with something that we absolutely know, and maybe there's disagreement about some of the other stuff, but we absolutely know, we're gonna say, let's wait until we can do a charter amendment. I mean, I trust the 9 people around this table to invest every penny of the $6,750,000 that we want to invest in police raises and the $4.5 million in fire raises for that purpose. And then whenever we can get the charter amendment done or whatever, to go then and protect that money long term. I trust the 9 people around this table to do that. And I think the 9 people around this table trust each other to do it. So why would we wait to do it if you think, which one of your colleagues you think is not going to vote to do something like that? Who around this table is not going to vote to do appropriate stuff? So I'm saying, like,
Really want me to pick them out?
why would, yeah, but I'm saying these are known knowns, and I only say that, Counselor, because like,
The city
I
attorney
think
might
we all
object.
know that we have to do something, and I hear your own timing, but these are things that we know, and it's a tough conversation, and I want to go make the case to voters. I think that's the best way to educate them when they're very focused on an issue, and that might be where we disagree about, like, the best way to do voter engagement. I think it's about giving the question out there and spending the next 75 days educating voters about the future of the city and ultimately letting them decide.
So when I did that, we had several meetings, task force meetings. We had one for the river, we had one for public safety, we had one for items included in vision.
Sure.
Capital package, or in the package itself. So if we're going to show a commitment to public safety, why would we not start having that conversation now to make sure that that funding is included in something that future mayors and future councilors
So I'll
cannot
say,
change?
we're not saying anything different right now. We could do it right now, and you could protect it for the long term, because there's some of those things that sounds like are technical challenges that just take time on the calendar. This budget year, you could put $7 million more in the police department. You could put $4.5 million more
There's
in the fire
only a
department.
certain time, and Mr. City Attorney, maybe you could
We're talking about
remind
the
me.
budget
but-
process, though.
No, because if we were to increase the public safety tax,
I know, hold on.
it's under the charter.
Yeah, I know, hold on,
of
but
the
there's-
percentage.
I know there's
And so
a-
we would have to make a charter change.
No, I understand. I think this is where we're missing each other. I'm saying this council and I could appropriate the same amount of money this year, and then when it's time to make the charter change, you protect that same amount as a percentage of the budget for the public safety tax, and so you make sure that, and nobody else can mess with it, but we don't have to wait. We can make that commitment, should the voters approve it, we can make that commitment now, and for that stuff to kick in July 1, and then in the charter change, we make sure that we protect it long-term.
But I don't think
We
you're.
can walk and chew gum at the same time on this thing.
I don't think you're hearing me. If we're making a commitment to improving, we already have this lockbox, this dedicated tax specifically for that purpose. So
Understood.
why
I hear you.
why would we not?
Because we can make a guarantee
sure
this
that the
budget year and
voters
just a
know
maybe
that
deal.
we are going to make this commitment to enhance public safety. So we already have this revenue, this stream that is protected, that nobody can touch. And so we want to improve that revenue source so that we do stand on our commitment to improve public safety.
I stand on that
That's
commitment
all
every single day, and I know that fund's going down, and I know we can make those investments now, we can protect it for the long haul. Something that I told you the other day I'd be very supportive of doing.
Thank you.
Well, okay. I'll go just briefly, and then Counselor Lakin, are you still wanting to speak? All right.
Maybe.
Okay, we'll see what I think. The first thing I want to say, Mr. Mayor, thank you for coming.
Yes, sir.
This last 2 hours has been intense, going back and forth, and I think it shows your commitment to the city, and I think genuinely, you see the challenges, you want to make investments and make a difference. I think we all share that. I thought about the phrase they say, if you want to go fast, you go alone, but if you want to go far, you go together. And I am desirous of building a proposal together, just as a, oh, okay, we got some, is there pizza here?
I guess it has been 2
Is there
hours.
pizza? Okay, that's good.
I'm eating for
So-
two still, so.
Oh, that's good. So,
See, I just let my stomach growl.
I think we want to build a proposal, together. Residents have been calling me, they've been emailing. All of it has been negative. And I think, now the folks that have been emailing and calling me where it's been positive, they've been service providers, they've been folks that are very granularly involved in the work and understand the challenges. But the residents, I've gone to the community conversations, and we had a little dust up at the West Side one, which I thought was great. But it was because there were some residents there that were hearing about this, and they had some challenges with homelessness. I think that if
Specifically wanted to bus people to California.
sure, well, and
So I just think we have to put in context
sure,
what
well,
we're talking about.
Not in earnest proposal.
Yeah, I just wanted to.
right. Well, and so there are folks along the spectrum, but I think the risk if we don't do thorough community education, we risk not passing the package, and then maybe we set ourselves back. Maybe another. This is a little hyperbolic. Another 45 years in re-asking the question. We want to go far. We want to go together, and so not only you have said several times, I want to make the case. Tag us in. I think give us something as we collaborate together. Give us something to vote for, and then equip us with the knowledge that we need to go out and help you make the case. Because I think we all recognize that there needs to be additional investment. And then also, when the auditor came in here and gave a presentation that was very confusing, give us some of those resources that help us kind of de-escalate some other folks' construction. I feel like there is a path forward, but it doesn't have to be a showdown on, the 19th. Let's work together, maybe a little bit of a longer timeline, but it may be more durable if we work together in that way. Those are kind of my thoughts.
I mean, I think ultimately the council gets to decide if you are going to vote on, want to vote on the 19th. I encourage us to vote, and I think you're right on the go fast, go far deal. I think we're in a place where we got to consider how do you do both, and that's why I think involving the citizens in that conversation is important. And I know, like, I am one elected official in this building, and I think maybe the only one who has the urgency of February. So I won't say the urgency of the issues, the urgency of February, just because, here every day seeing these issues, understand what people are going through, trying to address them, and people who are suffering or victimized because of it. And I don't think that, making even large decisions always happens on a perfect schedule. I don't think February is perfect. I don't think April's perfect. I don't think August is perfect. I don't think any of that's perfect. I think what is going to be found at least in the perfection is, our aggressiveness in trying to get it right and then giving people some agency and making a decision if they agree. Now, again, that's the viewpoint of one person sitting at this table. And I think there's some unanimity on the opposite side of that, which is okay. But, as I said before, I do feel like there is some urgency of now, just because the issues are out there, and to the point everybody's made about, like, oh, these things take a long process. We still have a long way to go if voters were to approve it, to us making decisions, to us getting the money out the door against the outcomes. I don't just want to spend $30 million on homelessness. I want to end homelessness. I don't just want to invest in police and fire. We're trying to make the safest big city in the country. I don't just want our priorities around children and youth to be words on a piece of paper, but I want something in this community that people understand that we invest in it. So now, that being said, that sounds very political. Like, I get that. That's not how I mean it, but I'm just saying, like, I think that there's a moment right now where we can tap voters in. And yes, there's gonna be some time where we have to go down this journey together around, can we actually end homelessness? Can we do all these things? I think the time is right to bring voters in that conversation. I think it gives us time to be thoughtful in the budget process about how we do that. I think there needs to be a heavy degree of accountability. There's parts of me, and I do appreciate the level of expertise around issues around the table, but I don't think there's anybody around the table who's a homelessness expert or a police officer or this or that. And that's not an indictment on anybody. It's that those people exist in our community, and we need to hold them accountable for getting results. And so we need to get off the dance floor, on the balcony, and make sure people are doing what they're supposed to be doing. And we have to invest in the outcomes because people in the city deserve it. And I think that's kind of where I am. But I don't think I'm probably that much different from anybody else around the table, but that's where the urgency for me comes in. We got to get it right on the outcomes front. Lots of conversation about these issues. There's some progress, no doubt, and there's been progress before I got here. But when it comes to the type of progress that set us apart, we are light years away from that, and it's not going to happen just because we want it to or hope it will. There's no inevitability about it. We have got to take action.
Sure, and I appreciate, and one of the things I greatly admire about you is your bias toward action. We do need to act. I want to act with you. I think if we allow ourselves the opportunity to, just to use your phraseology, let's get on the balcony together.
When do you want to go to the balcony?
Well, I don't know. Are we singing on the balcony?
When do you guys want to go on the balcony?
Because if we're on the balcony together, then we can kind of just be on the same page with the same message.
Balconies are, it's also fine to dance during the day.
Okay. I appreciate it. Councilor Lakin.
Yeah, I would just say on the voter education element that's come up quite a bit, I just think voter ownership is a key component before we start educating. So just taking the time to go out and get voters really to own this. We ourselves are trying to get around this table. I wish we had spent the last 2 hours and 15 minutes really talking more in depth about any one of these line items, rather than just broadly about the package. Because we would have made a lot more progress on some things that we don't have enough data about. I can't go and say to any of my voters, my constituents in my district, that I'm supporting this because all it is this $80 million addition to the general operating fund. I can't guarantee them that any amount of dollars are going to be used for any one thing. Well, I mean, tell me where I'm wrong.
That's
Because I don't know the outcome of 9 other votes. So we talked about you being the originator of the budget. We know how that process goes.
What's the conversation you have with people about the $419 million from last year that we appropriated in the operating budget?
Yeah, that's like tried and true every single year, 62%.
And that's just the conversation we're having right now.
Yeah.
A tried and true process. We have priority. And what did we do last year? I mean, there was some budget management. We did invest some in homelessness. We invested in some of these areas. We created the Office of Children, Youth, and Families. Like, we've done some things that are very consistent. And so I think the thing is, and I understand where you're coming from, but like, I think the mistake that I made in some ways is that there was a focus that we all shared around addressing these issues and it going through the budget process so that, year over year, there's a recommendation that homelessness is going to cost $30 million over multiple years. I think there's a huge upfront investment on that. I don't think by year 6 it costs that much, right? Like, so that will eventually change. But what people are saying, what I'm getting at is people are invest in what's going to end it. Invest in that. And so I think that's where it's a little bit different. And so I hear what you're saying about, any one of those things and all that kind of stuff, and I can appreciate that. And I know it's a way to kind of beat up on the proposal, but the reality is that same tried and true process that we put the 419 in operating resources through last year, where I'm sure there's a high degree of, I imagine, trust from people in your district who said, I trust Phil to make good decisions on my behalf, given the needs of the city. We know that we have these needs that exist in the city. They're consistent with our mayor council priorities. What I'm saying is that I really do believe that we're in a place where it's putting something through that tried and true process, that voters trust that process, they see it every year, they know these are priorities, they know these are needs. Why not lean into that process?
Yeah,
And I get you, I understand you disagree.
Yeah, well, you said something in your response, you know, I know what these needs are, I don't know what the needs are
You
on
know-
business closing fund, on children, youth,
So-
and
so-
families. I don't know all the needs
Yeah.
on the homeless
And so what
side
I'll
because
say-
we haven't gone through the whole clutch.
And I know
process.
Mandy's
Let
here
me
next
just
week, so-
finish
so-
for just a
yeah,
second.
sure.
I'll let you finish. The whole, we've spent 30 minutes with clutch. I definitely know we have a homelessness problem. There's no question about that. But I don't know how, I've only had 30 minutes with them. How am I going to explain that to people and cause them to go out and vote for this? I want to be for this. I can't be for this based upon the limited number of facts that I have. And I can't be for it if I say, well, I don't know, 28 million could go, but we could get in the council meeting in June and actually appropriate only 22 million. Well, the proposal calls for 28. Yeah, but we decided $6 million was needed elsewhere. I like giving them real certain facts and real certain guidance on where this money will go, especially if we're asking them to give us so much additional money for the first time in 45 years. I think that's a critical element that we're just missing. I think we can give them more definity as we go forward in a very good, open process. If we have 10 more of these meetings, if we have 5 meetings out of the public, we may be able to get to a point where we say to them, look, these are the categories that need the funding. This is how we suggest it will be appropriated. This is how much we will appropriate into the public safety tax. A standing facility that we can just move money into and give them the confidence in us rather than saying, the confidence in where the money will go rather than saying, trust us.
All right, also, I should have said this, item number 6 has been pulled from the
Probably
agenda.
not much time to do that today anyway.
Absolutely. Okay. Anyone else before,
I'll just-
Counselor Hall Harper.
Summarize. I think the greatest concerns I'm hearing right now is timing and process. Timing of how we're going to do it, whether we're gonna engage with the community and get our questions answered before or after we vote, this
Right.
vote on the 19th. I'm not saying one way is better or worse than the other. I get what you're saying and how you want to do it, and I understand what my colleagues are saying also, certainly how we've done things in the past. And so I think we just got to come together on that. But in addition, after we get that settled, then we're going to start talking about some of the more direct concerns that we have as individually as counselors in our respective communities. And I'm not against, certainly not against, and I understand we do need more revenue to provide and address the issues that our citizens throughout the city have highlighted. But one of the things I know that I will want to see regardless at the end of the day is a lot more oversight. And I mean real oversight, not those in these respective departments or areas of just saying, oh, well, just trust us. And so I want to be clear, when I say oversight, I'm talking about civilian and community oversight. Not that of the same people making the same decisions and just justifying their own actions. So, on several levels. But there's no secret that my biggest concern is when it comes to law enforcement. And so that's not something I'm certainly interested in throwing more money at for the same results, if processes and culture doesn't change. I've shared at this table before, I teach, and the students that I teach are 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, that age group. And I ask every time, because I teach government, who's interested in serving in government, in particular, whether it's elected official or being a public servant. I ask the questions about IMSA, is that an interest, or if it's fire department, or if it's police and those types of things. And the reality is, this generation that we're going to depend on, we're not hiring 75-year-old police officers, right? If we're not addressing that, then it doesn't matter what we do at this table. We're not going to have anyone sitting in these seats to do anything. And the problems that we're facing now are just going to get worse. And so until we address those issues at their basic level, cultural concerns, it doesn't matter how much money we pass. And so, that's all I have to say.
Anything further?
Yeah, I'll just say this, I appreciate the concerns around the table. I certainly appreciate the service of the people around the table.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. I think, I recognize there's certainly some disagreements, and there's a number of reasons, affordability issues, timing, is this the right thing to do? And as I said before, I'll say it again, I have a tremendous amount of confidence in our ability to go have a conversation with voters between now and February. I have a tremendous amount of confidence in the people in this room to make appropriate investments to get the outcomes that people deserve. I have a tremendous amount of confidence in the workforce here at the city and our partners to get the job done. But what I can tell you as somebody who's not just a mayor, but somebody leading an organization, the resources to get it done at the level in which people deserve, it just does not exist. I believe the way that we're running our financial shop with the reliance on fund balance is not a great way to run a budget and to run a government. It's not nothing. I mean, it's like maybe a philosophical difference. There's nothing illegal about it. I mean, but I just think that we need to do things a little bit differently. Again, I'm one person on it, and for me, with all the political risk associated with it, and I think there are significant political risks for everybody around this table, certainly for me, I'm willing to take that political risk and go make that case in February for the need for things. I do believe that they exist just that much. And it's for that reason, I also am willing to take the risk of counselors. I'll get as much information as you all need between now and then. That may not make a difference. So I'm saying I'll get you everything you need, understanding it may not move one person in the direction that I would like for you to move to give voters a chance to vote on it. But I'm going to get you that information, and I'm going to ask that the counselors, even if the support is not there, to take a vote on this deal on November 19th. And I think there's a couple of reasons why. Number one, I think it's critically important, and I still want to have the opportunity to get folks to a place, as I mentioned before. Number two, I need to get on about the business of working to get a budget built to help us meet as many of the goals and priorities we have in the city as possible. I need to get on with making sure that we can provide whatever assurances to our police and fire departments on what we'll be able to do next year. There's a lot of things that have to happen, and some of it is contingent on us, being able to feel good about the possibility of being able to invest more. And I think the last part is, I don't necessarily want to talk about a sales tax for 6 months with people and not have the ability, because we lack an election day, to get it done. Now, I will say, I think it may be very appropriate for the council to lead on that, and I'd be very supportive of that. But I am 100% ready to take the political risk associated with sending to the public. I think I would like to have the opportunity for that, at least that chance to it on the 19th. And I recognize people might not be in a supportive stance, but I would like to have some closure or some possibilities around that issue on the 19th. And again, I would support, there's a lot of conversations that counselors I know need to have. I feel very comfortable. You will find a very supportive place with me in thinking about revenue enhancements. But I think that if not February, I maybe this body as appropriators would be much better suited to have a conversation with voters and with each other about where you all think we should go, and we'll provide whatever data you need on what the needs are. But for me, I feel like the conversation that we've had with voters through our community conversations, through the things that this is not the only time I'm out in the public, by the way. I think that there is the ability to get people to a good place, and I'm going to spend a significant amount of time, 75 days after November 19th, making sure that folks feel more comfortable. But if we don't get there, that's fine. I'm very supportive of the 9 very thoughtful folks on the council leading the charge on the conversation about revenue enhancements in the future, even if you decide not to do it. Last year, I thought we had a good budget process. This year, we'll do much of the same. But to be clear, there are going to be things that we cannot do. And I don't love going and telling people that I can't address their problems, we don't have the resources. But I will say, I do know we punch above our weight all the time, and that is certainly a credit to the folks around this table and the 4,000 employees at the city. So my hope is, even though there's severe disagreement and maybe a positive outcome is not, well, a positive outcome from my standpoint is not positive, I am going to ask, and I've not asked for many favors down here, and I think I've been very supportive of everything that's come out of the council thus far, as much as I can tell. When you guys have agreed, I've agreed with you. So I'm asking you, not necessarily to agree with me, I'll try to make that case over the next 2 weeks, but I am asking you, given the fact that I feel like I've been accountable to you, I've not lied to you, and I've worked with you, to hold a vote on November 19th on the strength of that relationship that I feel like we've built. And look forward to visiting over the next couple weeks. I'll also say, I said it before, I'll say it again. Tense conversation is a tough issue. It should be hard. This stuff should be hard. And I recognize it's hard for a reason. And so I don't want anybody here to think that there's a whole bunch of hard feelings because we got a disagreement on something that is hard. We are supposed to disagree on hard stuff. That's why the system is built like it's built. And so when we leave here, everybody is still my friend. I'm still going to try to, get Phil to believe as I believe, and Phil's still going to tell me no. Well, Councilor Bingley and I have different issues. We're working through those. I don't tease him too much about like hair and all that kind of stuff. So I don't have much time, so I have to leave it alone. But I want to make it clear.
Just to name one.
I'll make it clear. I'll tell just a quick story and I'm leaving council, I promise. When I was in the legislature, I was one of 20 folks in a minority, super minority in the House. And there was a time early in my career that I would get so frustrated with people who disagree with me. I couldn't understand why they disagreed with me. Do they not want what's best for the state? Like, what is wrong with them is kind of what I thought. And then after a little while, it didn't take me too long, I realized that when I get up in the morning and drive to Oklahoma City and go serve and come back home and have to deal with family and all that kind of stuff, that there were so few people who understood what that was like. And some of them I had significant political disagreements with, but we had a shared experience that many people don't have. And I recognize for right now, with all the challenges we have here at the city, there's so few people who understand what it's like. And the 9 folks on the city council understand what it's like. And so for that reason, I do want to just, again, put a point on. We may have disagreements. I do still believe that we're all on the same team. And that may not always be evident in every conversation we have, but I do appreciate everybody around the table. I know your concerns are valid. I know they're real. I know there's a lot of people out there who might be frustrated and angry at the thought of a tax increase. There's some people who be frustrated and angry at the thought that the city wouldn't invest more, and we have to deal with all of that. And whatever perspective you come from, you have to deal with all that, and it's all just as intense. And so I appreciate you. I say it when I speak. I tell people I love them. I do love you all. I really, really do. It's not a ploy. I really, really do. And I'm very grateful for your service. And I ask that when Renee comes up here, you just say, yes, Renee, not a big deal on the hotel motel tax. All right, you guys take care. See you later.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yep, take care.
Now, Sarah, so we're coming up on 1 o'clock. We have a 1 o'clock.
You do.
Do we just need to continue with
Yes.
this meeting and then just hop into?
Yeah, that's unfortunately the scheduling challenge that we're in.
We'll
So,
just do
if
this
Renee's
and then-
ready, though,
So-
to,
For
We can
sure.
just eat lunch
Item,
during the-
Yeah.
item number 5, presentation by and discussion with representatives from Tulsa Regional Chamber on the hotel motel Holiday Inn tax, no, I'm just joking. And long-term
songs.
initiative to support tourism efforts. Other than discussion, no action will be taken. Counselor Bangle,
I mean, I think it's.
will you continue to chair?
Yes.
Sure.
You. Thanks for having me. And you'll be driving the PowerPoint, or do you?
I can, or I can give it to you.
Oh, you may just give it to me. That's fine. Thank you. Well, thank you, counselors. I had good morning on my notes, but
Now you're in
good
the afternoon.
No, I really appreciate you taking the time to listen. And contrary to what we've been talking about, this is actually other people's money. So I wanted to kind of highlight that.
Thank you for being so honest.
So,
Other individuals.
we were very bold. I will start with this, that we were very bold when we did this in 1984. Was the last time that we have raised. So if you think about 5% in 1984, it was a pretty big deal. Everybody since then has caught on to what we're doing around the country, and so they've increased, they've figured out this is it's called tourism economics. It's a big driver of economic revenue, and so that's why other cities have really focused on increasing their lodging tax. So since that time, our rate of growth has, and the reinvestment in Tulsa and attractions has significantly outpaced where we are. So I say that because we have some of the best world-class attractions, and Gilcrease is coming on soon as well. But our attractions are bringing in people. The BOK is bringing in folks. The Arvest Convention Center, all the work that we've done has significantly increased that, but we haven't been able to keep up. And so I just brought you a couple of comparisons. I know these are hard to read, and I'll send them to you electronically. But this is Fort Worth, for example. We actually lose a lot of business to Fort Worth, so I thought it was good to use them as an example. And you can see nothing's apples to apples, so you don't have anything that you can say, this city does it exactly this way. They all break it up differently. But as you can see, they have their city hotel tax at 9%. They also have their state tax, and then they have a tourism public improvement district of 2%. They're also tearing down their convention center because it's doing so well, and we're trying to get some of that business. But Fort Worth, Dallas, and Austin are tearing down their convention center. They found a state tax that they can put towards rebuilding because the demand is so high. And then Austin, you can see Austin's city hotel tax is 11%. And you can see how that breaks down. And again, the way they break out is differently, and that's a conversation that we need to have moving forward. But Oklahoma City last year raised their hotel tax to 9.25. It took them from a $6.5 million budget to a $27 million budget. To use that in comparison, we're at a $4.5 million budget. So I raised that to let you know, we don't get a lot of help from this state. The state gets $5 million in tourism as compared to Arkansas at $30 million to market. So what we have to do in sales and marketing is a big stretch. And you can see Oklahoma City has done quite well. I'll kind of skip through this, but I did want to highlight it right now because I wanted to give you the landscape. We have a TID right now, a Tourism Improvement District, that is 110 rooms and over, and it is 3% for those rooms. It's also an opt-in if you're under 110 rooms. So needless to say, we're not growing. Nobody else is opting in. The 110 room threshold is in, but no one else is opting in. And so right now, we have 45%, and putting this out there just for discussion, if we end up raising our lodging tax, I fully anticipate our TID coming into question. So right now, that TID dollars are not used for anything we can do operationally. Those are used simply to incentivize groups like NCAA, like BMX, like Chili Bowl. We've been able to maintain Chili Bowl because of TID. And if you look at all of the groups, FFA, Arabian, we would lose all that business if we didn't have incentives to keep them, and we're able to keep them with TID. But I do raise that for awareness. The why. We're on a huge momentum streak right now. Y'all all were part of the Big Damn Party, but we also were awarded the 2032 PGA Championship. The Today Show was a huge success. Also helped our businesses. So that was really nice to see and raise awareness. The Outsiders musical is on the road right now. It's in Dallas as we speak for 2 weeks. And we're bringing meeting and event planners and site selectors. We're going to follow that show around the country and make sure that we do that. The ballet is going to be talking about Route 66. And of course, the Lowdown is doing very well for our community. And then large-scale national conventions, of which we're turning business away right now, because we don't have enough rooms in the inn, literally, which is why we've been pushing for that. So the why is also we need to maintain our standard. We've got increased resources supporting growth. The Route 66 Centennial is our Super Bowl, and it's happening. So we have, just so you know, from a staffing standpoint, we are 14 staff members. Oklahoma City has 35 on Visit OKC. Fort Worth has 65. So our team is really, really stretched to sales and market. But we have tourism, people coming in all the time that we have to entertain, take care of, show off. And that's a good problem, but it's happening. And then our incentive funding and filling venues during the week. We need to have the Arvest Convention Center filled every single day of the week. Where this trickles down is at every restaurant, every retail, every attraction. We get so much money. October was high because we had an incredible October, but they are spending money in our community and leaving it in our community, and that's the important thing. We get their money, they don't think about it, they check out of their hotel room, and then it stays here. So we just wanted to bring it up as a bottom line. This is the only way we can continue our momentum, of which we've worked really hard to get here. It's a proud moment for Tulsa. And I want to just put it out there that this could be a solution for us. And we want to make sure that we are competitive in the market. So those are my talking points. And questions? Yes.
No, he has to call on us.
He has to
Yeah,
call on
right.
us.
Don't
He's-
try and run my meeting. All right,
And this is last year's email.
it was kind of a tie between Counselor Lakin and Counselor
You go
Director
first.
Wright. So we'll go with ladies first. Counselor
Thank
Director
you.
Wright.
Thank you, Renee, for what you and your team have done, continue to do. You heard a lot of discussion right now about a February date. Can you talk a little bit about this, timing-wise, for you all?
Well, I would say from a timing standpoint, this could be money we get immediately into the community. So the sooner we pass this, the sooner that money comes in and will help impact ways that we can provide, a variety of resources back. So that would be the timing. I would want it to pass. We get one shot at this, so I do want to make sure that we're successful, but we can't grow. So we are truly at a point where we are not sustainable from that aspect. The demand is much larger than what we can provide.
So I think if it passed in February, is it immediate collections or it's like the 60 days?
I think it's a similar.
So it passes February, you're not really seeing that revenue start to collect until 60 days after. So we're not planning Route 66 things that we can't fund if this doesn't pass?
Correct.
Okay.
And
Are there other things, like, if we don't get this done, these things go away? Or is it more like the sooner we get this done, the more that you can do all the things you were just talking about?
Yeah, it's really is, the sooner we will scale accordingly.
Okay.
So everything that we have planned will be if we can afford to do it. And
The
that's what we-
final, so lodging tax, most people are visiting. If you talk about our homeless population, some people are living in hotels, so I don't want to undersell, like, it will touch some people in our community, but it's mostly a shared cost from outside visitors. Do you have a concept or a breakout of, like, how much is business travel versus, like, corporately funded travel versus, like, individuals, or no?
We do have a breakdown right now. It's about, I would say, 60% transient, 40% is falling in the group space.
Okay.
The 60% transient, a lot of it is corporate. So they come in, whether they have a contract with a hotel, it might be airline crew, a variety of those things. The transient has been really interesting because of things like the musical, because of our music scene, because of Kane's Ballroom and the BOK, and our horse shows are filled 365 days a year. Those are typically transient. They don't sign group contracts, so we track them accordingly.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. That's all.
Counselor Lakin.
Okay, so on that topic, go just a little bit deeper. How many people, sorry, I'm just
Yeah.
pointing with
No.
my pen, I'm pointing at it.
Well, don't point to stuff.
Sure, laser pointer at the
I'm
screen.
like a dog.
Sorry, both of you looked, I was like, gosh, I'm gonna quit talking with my hands. The Italian part in me is coming. Okay, so how many people from Tulsa, as a percentage, tend to be in a motel or hotel room any given night? Is it 5%? Is it 10%? Is there a number out there, like, of the total
Of
population?
Tulsans that are staying in a hotel.
Well, of all the people staying in a hotel, how many of them are Tulsans in a given
Oh,
night?
I'd say it's probably somewhere between 5 and 10%.
Okay, so fairly small effect on our own residents.
Yes.
Fairly large effect on those who are transient, corporate, whatever the
Yes.
terminology is. Okay, that's helpful. And then, if this does pass in February, it would go into effect in April, which is prior to all the people coming in for the Route 66 to continue.
Yes, so our major events,
So
May
there's a good
30th.
opportunity to increase the amount of collections that are made if this is in place earlier.
And we have some major events coming up, so we've got NCAA coming up with basketball. We'll be doing that in 2028. 2027, we're hosting 12,000 athletes for the senior games, which is bigger than the Olympics. So the Olympics is over 4,000 athletes. This is 12,000 for 13 days. So there's some big things on the horizon between the centennial and 2028.
And then last, what's the return? Is there an economic return to this? So every dollar we invest, we get X amount back?
Yeah.
So I know there's a number out there. For every visitor who comes, they leave $100.
Yeah, it's,
So-
the $100 is kind of the number, but then, there's also the restaurant, the retail, all of that. But just in what they spend on a daily basis tends to be about $100.
Yeah, and then it's multiplied through the economy as it gets used.
Yes.
7 times. Okay, but is there a return on investment for every dollar that we receive here? There's going to be X product coming back to the city. So there is more sales tax collected. We're going to spend that sales tax, getting more people here, which leads to even more sales tax numbers, hopefully.
Yes.
for us.
Do you have a for every dollar?
I do. I can
It's this
provide
much, That would be.
Okay.
all kinds
Yeah,
of breakdowns
it
for
helps
you.
force
us to-
multiplier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is hot off the press, but I'll send you, this came out yesterday. It's the lodging tax report for all over the US, but I think it's really good to have. So I'll leave you one copy here and then I'll send you electronically. This is also the lodging levies that's the latest one on this is February 24, but this gives you under the hood every single city. So I thought this would be good for you to see, and I'll send you both of those electronically. And this is the breakdown, just also electronically. This is what Oklahoma City presented to its voters, and I thought this might be good for y'all to see, so.
I do want to go study that.
But you can see not any of them are exact, so I think that's the conversation that needs to happen of, how do we do this? Right now, our TID got us to the dance, literally. Not to the balcony, but to the dance. But it got us to the dance, and it's been great, but I think we could do so much more.
I think I missed the revenue. Is there a revenue number that's projected if we go to 9.25?
It's a 3.8 million, I think, is the revenue.
More a year than what we have now.
Yeah,
And that's at the 15% increase?
that's it, going to 925, at our current rate right now.
We're at 5 right now.
Okay,
5 to 9.
but I'm talking about your allocation from 45 to 60 is what you showed on that
And that
slide,
is
right?
only, I put that out there for knowing the TID could be in jeopardy if we go to 925. So we have to be thinking about the big picture.
So it's a revenue replacement potential?
Well, here's the thing about TID, we don't really see that as dollar. We use them to incentivize groups, which is fantastic, and we can still do that. But right now, when we're incentivizing a group, that doesn't help me build staff, that doesn't help us grow in any way, shape, or form. That's, all our operations are not part of that at all. It's a separate board, it's voted on the groups and the incentives. But we do have money in there for groups up to 2032 right now.
So if we go from 5 to 9.25, we're looking at $3.5 million more to do all this, is the kind of summary statement?
Yeah,
Okay.
and right now, the TID brings in about 3 million.
Okay.
Why would it be in jeopardy though?
Well, because the way it was written in the state statute is that if we change our tax rate, then that becomes a conversation. So our hotel community is very supportive of growing the lodging tax, but we would need to be talking to them about, what does that look like? Does it go from 3 to 2? Is it, anybody can opt in or out? There's a variety of things that we would probably need to look at, but I
So
wanted-
there's that trigger language on it. Okay.
Counselor Lakin, were you finished? Oh, okay, just making sure.
Sorry.
No more stabbing.
Counselor
like in
Darcy, do you have
dialogue.
anything else to add?
I think we mostly covered it. If we could get just, kind of similar to our last discussion of, hey, when we raise this much more, it generates this much, when we put this into this, it generates this much. I will just name to my colleagues, this is for future things, I don't think this is for what we would wanna look at this for right now, just when we're having these broader revenue discussions, lodging tax in some other cities gets used in interesting ways, like St. Louis uses it for, some eviction prevention work, like, a marginal part of it, I'm not trying to chip off of like what Renee's asking for here, I know you're like, wait, you're making a counter off, no.
Yeah.
But I'm just naming, there's some really creative things we see cities and communities do with lodging tax that I just think, like, is a lot to explore right now, but might be worth future conversations if we're gonna, go forward with raising this rate, which, we've put a lot of, I know Renee really has put a lot of work in over the time in making sure that hoteliers of that community is really on board, so.
Yeah,
I know
it's
people are
important.
supportive, yeah. So that's exciting, but yeah, just naming that there's creative things. people
Well,
do
and
with lodging
rebates on
tax.
this can also incentivize more hoteliers, correct? So
Yeah,
that's
we'd
another
love
part of
to
this.
grow our base,
Yeah.
and we have developers looking here to grow the base, which is
Why don't we
just,
just get rid of it?
What?
Sure. Finish the meeting.
Oh, your chair.
I mean, I will say, after years of just finding that half of these chairs should not be used.
Yeah.
I know, I
No,
feel
just
like
this
I'm
one.
short.
Well, it gets moved around depending on who's met in here.
Usually
Anyway,
it's me that
yeah.
falls into that chair.
Just finish the meeting.
I was like, get rid of the tax? That's not what you were saying for a second, it was the chair.
We're all hilarious
I
at this
think,
point.
yeah, I think we're probably done.
Thank you, Renee.
Well, I want to ask one question. So, tell me about when you go to represent the city of Tulsa tourism in
Yeah.
other cities,
Yes.
what does that look like?
So we have opportunity where we go, just for us to sell, make sure we're filling all of our venues. We go to different conventions, and we have trade show booths, we entertain clients, meaning we have to give them the brand story. They need to understand what they're going to get out of Tulsa. And then we want to bring them in, and, that also is time and resource to make sure that we bring them in and we show them all the great facilities that we have. But every one of these meetings could bring, 15, 20,000 people. And so just having Sports ETA last year was a great example, because you have other states that came in and then took over McNally's or took over, and then they had huge events and left more dollars. So we're always out there trying to get these big shows to come here and entertain here too.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you,
We're
Renee.
in a good point. It's a good problem, but everyone wants to come to Tulsa,
Yeah.
so we want to take advantage of that.
Any other questions, comments, concerns? Okay, since we pulled item number 6, we are at item 7. We are
Thank you.
adjourned. Thank you.